Welcome to VMLY&R's Juneteenth Celebration and Juke Jam. Now introducing your hosts, Erica Hatfield and Jewel Mensa.
Juneteenth is the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States.
Dating back to 1865, it was on June 19th that the Union soldiers, led by Major General Gordon Granger, landed at Galveston, Texas, with news that the war had ended and that enslaved people were now free.
This was 2.5 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which had become official on January 1st of 1863.
One of General Granger's first orders of business was to read to the people of Texas General Order Number 3, which began most significantly with, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free."
This involves an absolute equality of rights and the rights of property between former slave masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that of employer and hired laborer. Initially, Juneteenth was a time for reassuring each other. However, now it is a celebration of Black culture through parades, festivals, concerts, and cookouts. Juneteenth continues to be highly revered in Texas and across the United States decades later, with many descendants of former enslaved people making an annual pilgrimage back to Galveston on this date.
On January 1st, 1980, Juneteenth became an official state holiday through the efforts of Al Edwards, an African-American state legislator. The successful passage of his bill marked Juneteenth as the first emancipation celebration granted official state recognition.
Though not a federal holiday, 47 states and the District of Columbia recognize Juneteenth as a state or ceremonial holiday, and many companies, like ours, have made it a recognized company holiday. How do we bridge the gap? By continuing the conversation on Reconstruction, in the belief of the right of all of us to not only own ourselves and our government, but that also which we produce, exchange, and grow in value.
We'll kick off the Juneteenth Juke Jam with an hour panel discussion on what modern-day Reconstruction for the Black community looks like and what our WPP agencies are doing to ensure their commitment to change and increasing diversity within our organizations, for our clients, and for the industry. This panel will be moderated by author, lawyer, and TV host Ebony K. Williams, featuring some Black executive leaders from across our WPP network. And now to Reconstruction 2.0 panel.
Welcome to this Juneteenth special that we're calling Reconstruction 2.0. I'm blessed and privileged to moderate this dynamic powerhouse group of talented executives and leaders. My name is Ebony K. Williams. I wear many hats, primarily as a journalist where I report for Revolt, hosting Revolt Black News. I also host a podcast around legal headlines and pop culture called Holding Court for iHeartRadio, the Black Effect Network. And I'm on this really random show called Real Housewives of New York. Anyway, much more importantly, I want to introduce these dynamic, really, really important, powerful executives that are joining us today. I want to start with Myron King. Myron, of course, of VMLY&R. Myron's the Chief Integration Officer. Welcome, Myron. Thank you. Also joining us, we've got Miss Carol Watson. Carol's coming from BCW Global, where she's the Chief Inclusion Officer. Welcome, Carol. Also joining us, Latoya, Latoya Christian. Latoya's, I know, I want to say Tanya because I'm.
I know.
With Latoya,
I know. I forgive you. It's okay.
with Latoya Christian's dear sister, but Latoya is a powerhouse. She is from Group M, where she serves as managing partner as well as director of the multicultural team. Welcome, Latoya.
Thank you.
And rounding out this dynamic group, we've got Brian Owens, also from VMLY&R, where he's Senior Vice President of Commerce. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So to just give us a little foundation for the framework of what we're going to be discussing today, this has been in talks many months now, and it really stems from this notion of celebrating Juneteenth, which we know is an emancipation, a liberation of Blackness and Black Americans and our story in this country. And we're going to get to a little bit of breaking news that makes all of this extremely timely in a minute, but we frame it around this notion of Reconstruction 2.0 because Reconstruction was an all too brief period of time after the emancipation of enslaved people of African descent in this country. And it only lasted from 1865 when we start this notion of emancipation here in America, and it goes through 1877. And in that brief window, known as Reconstruction, there was just a splendid, unprecedented amount of Black leadership. We saw Black individuals elected even to governorships and U.S. Senate seats in ways that we didn't see again until well after the Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s, of course. We just saw Black wealth building. We saw Black banks. We saw just Black communities immediately walk out of enslavement into notions of Black political, economic, leadership, prosperity. And it was extremely powerful and cut entirely too short. So we're framing today's conversation around the notion of a Reconstruction 2.0, because what happens when we pick up where that era of Reconstruction left off and reestablish and re-energize and reinvest, right, in those spaces of Black political and community leadership, which I know is the goal for this moment. So before we started, Carol, had a brilliant idea, which is what if we talked a little bit about our immediate reactions to this breaking news as we have this conversation. President Joe Biden is about to probably sign and formalize a federal holiday observing Juneteenth. And that's significant in many ways. But as with most things in our today's ecosystem and news cycle, not met without some controversy and mixed reaction. So I'm going to go around this dynamic group and get some just top level reactions to breaking news of President Biden and this Congress making Juneteenth a national federal holiday for the first time in American history. And I'll start with you, Carol.
Oh, thank you. It's such a hot topic. I was in Brazil maybe 25 years ago, and I was impressed that they had a day that they recognized, freedom and slavery in that country. That was a long time ago. So I think, yes, there should be more recognition of dates. The mixed reaction for me personally is that, aligned with reparations, it should be to support in a day of service for Black nonprofits to support those businesses, use that labor, not to just have a barbecue and have a long weekend, but to do something very intentional. So the mixed reactions that I'm hearing about are, the teachers, they don't have the opportunity in June 19th or June 18th to teach true history with that day off. And it doesn't impact the shooting, the hate crimes, the injustices, and the inequality. So I'm hoping it's not a formative distraction from getting some real work done.
Indeed. Myron, reactions to the holiday?
Yeah, sorry for the mute pause. I think I don't know about the negative reaction to it. I know what the acknowledgement means as a culturally significant act. Coming up, I learned about June 19th and Juneteenth because of the household I was in, not because of the schools I went to. And I was told, this is our July 4th. There's a July 4th, but this is our July 4th. And honestly, I was like, well, where's the fireworks? Well, I got to be at school. Are we really observing it like that? And it's always made Juneteenth like a maybe not the most legitimate holiday, despite its legacy and its importance. So that this happened in the last 36 hours, I think is amazingly significant. I think the backlash is still part of that same divisiveness that came out of the last year. As we exit COVID, there are going to be some things that people cling to. And some of this positivity that we're feeling, some of this uniformity that we're feeling, this cause, I think there's always going to be some folks that rally against it. And I think that's what this is. But I feel good about the bipartisanship that this is going to happen. It's going to be a federal holiday. North Dakota and South Dakota won't be able to hide from Juneteenth anymore. And I think that's a really huge thing. So ignore the haters,
Got that.
keep it moving.
All right. Thank you, Myron. LaToya, what do you think
Yeah,
about it?
absolutely. So I think that from a standpoint of the acknowledgement, it's just so remarkable that this is happening. I think also the fact that it is being recognized as a national holiday does put emphasis on us to think about it from an educational standpoint as well, similar to what Carol was saying, and really getting intentional about making sure that it doesn't just become a superficial holiday. I know I speak from a first generation American where there are certain aspects of being African American that I'm still learning, that my parents are still learning, because we are not necessarily rooted in the same traditions or culture of Black Americans. So I think the aspect of it of bringing education and acknowledgement is 100% necessary. Similar to Myron, the haters are always going to have their, their opinions, but I definitely think that it is something that's positive.
Indeed, indeed. And Brian, your reactions?
I paused because I too grew up hearing about it from my great 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 grandmother who died at 105 years old. So, but we're from the North, so didn't necessarily have the same sort of attachment. However, for my daughter, who's 4 years old, I don't care about people hating it. If we're focusing on inclusivity and making sure everyone feels like they're a part of something, I love Martin Luther King Day. I celebrate that. I celebrate Kwanzaa. Everything Black, we should be celebrating and learning, because this is about history, right? Juneteenth is a rewrite of history. And if we want to be consistent and honor that, we have to make sure we're acknowledging things that even are painful, right? So we can grow from it. So I feel very strongly about the holiday. I applaud the new administration for what they're doing. And I hope more people were paying attention to the people who are pushing back, and we're, holding them accountable. Sure.
Indeed. And similar, I grew up actually in the South. I'm a proud daughter of the American South. I was born in Amite, Louisiana, a tiny little country town in Southeast Louisiana. And so therefore, the story of Juneteenth, which is based in what happened in Galveston, Texas, it really right in our backyard. So my late Aunt Barbara Williams was born on June 19th. And so Juneteenth, and she was also like the Black Mecca encyclopedia for our family, and so yeah, she held it down. She held it down. I get it honest, y'all. That's what I can tell you. So always showed up with a lot of pride around the fact that she was born on a day of Black liberation, and knowing that on June 19th, 1865, finally, 2.5 years after they should have known, 250,000 enslaved Black bodies were made aware of their freedom. And for me, this federal holiday observance is significant because I look at other communities in our country and globally, whether it's Holocaust Remembrance Day, whether it's, different days in which we observe so many other things. And I think that a lot of, at least the Black American experience, I've personally received, Tanya, to your point of kind of recognizing some newness here. God dang it! I'm so sorry, Latoya. That's the last time I'm gonna get that wrong.
Family situation going on here,
and they look just alike, y'all. Like, I'm not even kidding. This is not one of those people look the same. They are like spitting images of each other, and their mama looks like them too. Y'all. Okay, Latoya, I'm sorry. To your point, I feel like there was always a lot of shame, frankly. When we speak about the enslavement of Black folks in this country. And really, it just was so horrible to me that we have not been given in this country permission to celebrate our liberation in a sense of pride, and exuberance as some of our fellow countrymen. So for that reason, and maybe even purely for that reason, I'm extremely happy to see our government finally acknowledge our liberation as a Black people. And also though to the controversy, I think two things can be true at the same time. I think we can have this moment of federal observance and keep our foot on the necks of federal and local governments around actual passing of reparations, which is long overdue, around actually ending police brutality that takes too many of our brothers and sisters. So all of these things can continue while we also observe this piece of our history. So
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you all for your reflections on that. I want to get started with you, Carol. Can you give us a sense of, so much, my God, so much has happened since 2020 around these issues of race and justice in America. We know, sadly, in the wake of the murder of Brother George Floyd, there has been a lot of engagement, awareness, and education, particularly from corporate levels. A little bit about what your company has done in the past year around, we'll call it this racial reckoning in America.
Yeah, thank you for that. While we had started previously, we doubled down for sure. We wanted to take advantage of the energy of those that don't look like those on this panel, that all of a sudden were awake and they wanted to play a role. And so it can't be just us and in this small percentage of this industry. And everyone has to be welcome to tapped in to do some work. So what I wanted to do is take advantage of that energy. So we built out, we made some commitments, not only to kind of dismantle and look at the talent processes, starting with recruiting. So we took a kind of wanted to embed and really pull apart that process. We're in year one and we're continuing, but the more questions you ask about why are we doing it this way? How do we, make sure that the experience of everyone, particularly for Black people, because they're the most underrepresented, is tweaked. We've made a commitment for mid to senior level Black talent over the next couple of years. We built out 5 different think tanks we call idea think tanks to really focus on recruiting, professional development, client relationships, cultural insights, and community through the lens of diversity and inclusion to make sure that everyone, we have over 100 people in North America participating in these think tanks and really doubling down on that. Added some leadership accountability, we already had, but we wanted to double down on quarterly reporting to leadership on how do we move from candidate tracking diversity to hiring, and what does that look like, and how does that compare to promotions, levers, retention. So we're getting a lot of traction from leaders that really want to know what do those numbers look like and what is the story that it tells in a meaningful way. So those are some of the major things that we've engaged in. The ERGs have been phenomenal, particularly AIR, which is our Black ERG, and they've really become much more strategic and impactful, not only with clients, but with internally building in buddy systems for employees as they start, culture mentors, coaches, as well as sponsorship.
That's fantastic. Similarly, Myron, I want to ask you about what the efforts and strategy has looked like over at VMLY&R. Y&R rather.
Y&R, yeah. It's alphabet soup, but we've gotten it down in the last
Y'all got a lot
year.
of letters.
We figured out our letters. Thing number 1, we figured out our letters. Thing number 2, I think that we endured, right? Let's start there, because I think we need to reflect a little bit that us having this opportunity is something we shouldn't squander, because there are a lot of people that don't. A lot of us have suffered a lot of loss, and to be in this moment and have this forum and to just be together, I think that warrants a pause of appreciation, of reflection, because it has been such a year. I think that we probably did 3 things, right? We stood our ground, right? Everyone faced a ton of adversity, and as a business, our revenue is up. We won some awards recently, some really positive recognition, and our people continue to shine. And the faces and voices are more diverse now than ever before, that are getting that recognition, that are showing up in juries to evaluate the work that's being awarded. We're a presence more now than ever before, and we're going to see that continue to increase. I think the other thing that we did, we truly faced our truth in the mirror. And in DEI, it was always in our DNA. We've said that. We've got a wall that says, bring everything you are to everything you do. But it wasn't necessarily a part of our everyday. Okay. And we all committed, like Carol said, it took all of us, not just the Black folks, but all of us to really reposition our intent and harness that energy to make change. And we called that transformation here. We built a program for the entire enterprise that really informs and studies where the biases exist across 8 different dimensions of our business, from employee experience to client engagement, to our press relationships, to talent recruitment, retention, development, community engagement, and then measurement, right? We measure what we treasure. And this is something that we do. More specifically, we've increased our recruitment very well. We're at about 250 employees that we've added over COVID. 35% of them are BIPOC, 12% of them are Black, which is up 5% from last year, and 65% of them identify as female. So diversity, we feel like we're doing that, but inclusion is important as well. Our ERGs have ballooned, right? Since we had 4 before COVID, we have 13 now, and they are fully funded, they are functioning. And if you see the credits of this event, you'll see that they work intersectionally. This came together, this Juke Jam came together because of all the ERGs contributing, collaborating, and saying what you're trying to pull off is important. And these same ERGs are going to amplify and power our Pride celebrations too. So that's something, that's strength in numbers, and we're realizing that. And then last but not least is equity, right? And that's what transformation's about. It didn't take us, we didn't get here overnight. It was a 400-year journey to this point, and now we're in this awakening. Call it reckoning. I call it an awakening. The fog lifted, and our program is robust. The last thing that we accomplish is how we can take the learnings that we've discovered and the muscle memory that we're developing and share that with our clients. And that's now a new practice that we offer called Inclusion Experience. So it's been a jam-packed year, and we've got years of work ahead, but I feel good about what we've accomplished.
Indeed. I absolutely love that, Myron, especially the bring all of who you are to everything you do. I will be taking that with me and going forward. I love it. Miss LaToya, what are things looking like over at Group M?
Yeah. So I think that the first thing that I want to kind of level set on is the fact that it really took a very tragic moment for us all to recognize that as an industry we were falling behind. And I think that a lot of the work that I'll be honest, feeling like you're pushing a boulder up a hill, right, by yourself. Now, to Carol's point, you have a little bit more momentum behind you. You have a little bit more support behind you to get some of this work done. So I always say, I'm not necessarily new to this. It's like, oh, you just woke up, right? Like you're now coming along for it. Right. So some of the things that we are now talking about more, getting more momentum behind, are things that were already in place. And so coming from a business perspective, my team personally has always been working alongside of our clients and alongside of the agencies to really help educate. I think one of the things that we're realizing is the real education gaps within the marketplace that exist around our clients and our teams really understanding the dynamics of, culturally diverse audiences. So we're continuing to do a lot of that work there, and we've created frameworks even well before 2020. So one was the New Majority Ready Coalition, which really looked to put an education framework in play for our clients to help them understand the business opportunity, to understand the cultural nuances in terms of what it meant from a creative and a media standpoint, and then also bringing those media partners into the fold to make sure that they are also working with us to put the right creative into the marketplace. So a lot of the conversations that we're having now about how do we talk and engage with these audiences, how do we get our clients, to double down with minority-owned spending and creative spending, those are things that we've been doing. And so now we're continuing to do that even more so through some of these initiatives. One of the things that we also had in place prior to 2020 was our multicultural marketplace, which, and I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but I'll tease it up here in the sense that we have had an opportunity to bring approximately between 400 and 500 minority owned and also targeted media partners into the fold to make sure that we're aligning our clients with partners that are really relevant to these communities. So thinking about how they show up in the environments in which they show up, making sure that they're really connecting with our audiences. So from a business and a marketing standpoint, in terms of how we're helping our clients activate, those are some of the things that we were already doing, but now we have so much additional support and momentum behind it that it's not just me and my team. We have a lot of allies behind us really working and helping us to spearhead these initiatives and really getting them to the next level.
Amazing. That's amazing. Now, Brian, I know you are also at VMLY&R along with Myron, and you are in leadership specifically around the commerce strategy part of it. Can you talk a little bit about what looks different for your space?
Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity to represent VMLY&R Commerce. We are a subsidiary of VMLY&R. So all the great work that Myron was highlighting, Latoya, Carol, are all part of a big soup of things that WPP is actually doing. Where I sit, I want to really focus on three things. I would say partnerships, specifically internally with content, and then I would say promotions as well. And I want to say people, and I would say I'm a representation of that. So I came here in November of 2020. So I haven't been here that long. But part of my journey for why I selected this was diversity and, frankly, the active recruiting of the networks and ERGs that are part of this. So when Arnisha Arrington was here, Najee, and HR, these are individuals. I want to make sure we highlight the people because a lot of the people in the community make it comfortable for leadership to come here. And then we see folks like this presenting, having a platform like this to educate allies on how to work with us. That's also very attractive. But let me back up for a minute from the topic of content. So where I work is around helping bring content, so creative content, as well as technology, and find that intersection across every single, call it shoppable experience. So if you're on TikTok, your ability to buy. So understanding the digital space is really important. So our CEO, who's a female, Beth Ann KAMAUU, he reached out and we partnered with the World's Women's Foundation, a socially powered movement with a goal of finding positive role models for 1 million girls by 2030. So we leverage our insights to work outside and partner with Hootsuite, as well as other experts in the industry to really understand what are the recommendations. And we leverage things like social listening. We leverage the new technology, the pioneering technology that's in place right now that brands like Colgate and Unilever and all looking to leverage, right, to give recommendations on how to reach this key audience. And then on the topic of promotion, I talked about Beth Ann, but her leadership team also represents that. So, our chief of creative is Latino, but now our chief digital officer is Black. So Debbie Ellison, chief digital officer, that type of promotion attracts folks to companies like this. Right? She's in the UK, but now she's responsible for driving new business opportunities, revenue streams, and enhanced capabilities. I come here to really put people on, right? At the end of the day, we all have privilege, we all have opportunity, and I think we all represent a new composition of what leadership should look like. And I feel like our ability to teach as well as find allies with partnership, as well as identify leaders of tomorrow and acknowledge them, I think we need to do a better job of saying, hey, Myron, you did a really good job. I think makes this place a really interesting place to work.
Dope.
Thank you for that, Brian.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead and get your flowers, Myron. Yeah, it's nice.
I will take those flowers.
Speaking of that, I have a question specifically I want to ask for you and Latoya, and it's around something that we discussed a bit before in the nature of recruiting, and it is absolutely wonderful and fantastic that we are seeing those improved numbers that you spoke about. But I do know that there are some Black and people of color and indigenous people that feel that when they are being recruited for certain capacities, somehow there's some conflation gaps going on where they are also being tasked with doing particularly executive work around D&I and E. And we all know that that's not everybody's ministry, so to speak, and it's quite literally not everybody's job. So what, I guess, are your reflections and reactions to this conflation that I think is, more complex than we're probably acknowledging, and do you have remedies around it? And then LaToya, I want to get your thoughts as well.
Yeah.
Thinking about that, first things first, I can't be anything different than what I am, and my identity is very apparent, right? So I'm always going to be a DE&I hire, even if I'm not a DE&I expert. And what we're finding and what we're trying to make clear to the organization, I think it's become easier, is that this is a job and it's a business opportunity, and it requires a certain skill set, a certain acumen, a certain depth. And we have that depth. And those are executive roles. So I don't necessarily have that same challenge. I get to stay in my organizational design capacity, and I also get to bring my lived experience as a technologist, as an analyst, as a designer to affect a cultural change that's different. But I wouldn't be able to have that success without partners and teammates. I wouldn't be able to get there without a Tasha Gilroy and a Subha Nalaraja and a Ronnie Felder. And them staying in their places allow us to be more of a team, more of a consortium to solve these challenges. And because we are partners and peers and not necessarily hierarchically aligned, it gives us more space, more room to be accountability partners. You know what that means? I can tell you what's happening, and we can have debate. We can come to the table with differing points of view and leave with compromise, and that's part of the reason that we are seeing more gains. We formed, and now we're storming, and the norms are starting to emerge too. Now, what that means for recruitment is that we get to be a example for those that are thinking about careers here, and help them be what they want to be what they have tried to be. And if they want to spread their wings and contribute to this effort, that's also an avenue for them to be a part of. And I think that's why we're seeing success in terms of our talent team recruiting folks. And like Brian said, we're leading by example, because you see Amber Chenneverts and Walt Gears and Myron Kings and Tasha Gilroys, and the list goes on and on. The next terrain is making sure that we have good, objective bases to put people on pathways to ascension in the ranks. And that's part of our next terrain of goals to achieve.
Perfect. LaToya, what do you think about that? And I appreciate everything, Myron just pointed out, but frankly, everybody's not Myron, right? And everybody doesn't necessarily have that that innate sense of awareness, right? Culturally even, to be competent in showing up in those capacities. So I'd love to hear your take.
Absolutely. So the one thing I do want to say, and I know it's not always the most, everyone has different views on it, is that with the events of the last year, I think every company made an effort to hire a DEI officer, right? And making sure that they had this person in place in order to address some of the internal structural issues, things of that nature. So on our side at Group M, we did have someone in place before 2020, Lakeisha Paul, who was already working the internal infrastructure of the organization and really working to spearhead a lot of the things that we're now seeing coming to fruition. The area that I think has become a little mixed in the last year is really understanding that there are certain, to Myron's point, there are certain skill sets. And just because I show up as a Black woman in this room does not mean that I have the skill set to do what my DEI officer does. Actually, I don't. I really don't at all, right? Because my by trade, I am a marketing strategist, and that's the area that I fall under. And so I do think in the last year, there has been a lot of, okay, we're just going to mix it all together and just, make it one thing without really taking into account what are the skill sets that people really need to have to bring into these spaces to really answer the questions and really get us to the next level. So for me, I make it very clear if there are any instances where there is confusion that we have the appropriate person to bring into this conversation that can definitely serve you in a better capacity than I can if it is really around structural, issues that a DEI officer would better relate to, or bringing me into the space when we're having marketing and strategy conversations. And I think for me, just really being very clear as to my role, but then also making it clear in terms of how we work together, because we do work together. We are feeding off one another because we do have common goals. But I think that, and I'm going to say, especially from a Black woman perspective, I have heard from a lot of peers where they are taking on this role that is not their role to take on. So for me, it's been very clear for me that I need to always, kind of draw that line in the sand and not be not apologize for it. And also, I think what it also does is it begins to force people to think, like, would you ask the social strategy person to do the same thing that you would ask the performance person to do? No. So why would you do it just because I show up aesthetically in a space? So I think it really pushes people to think a little bit further. And and it's all about education right now, I believe also.
Indeed. That's so powerful, particularly coming from you, Toya. Carol, I want to ask you, we talked a little bit when we were talking about the federal holiday about the notion of performance in this work. And we're all celebrating the much needed awakening, as Myron calls it, that we are having as a country and corporately and around DE&I issues. Carol, what would you want people to know about how to make sure in this moment where there is momentum and enthusiasm that we keep it about the work and we keep it actually productive and measurable, perhaps, as opposed to any sense of performative or fluff in this moment?
Yeah, thank you for that. We do a lot of advising for clients. So I'm going to kind of take that lens. And we talk about how you don't just get a participation trophy just because you decided to catch up to the rest of us. And I think it's critical for everyone, as LaToya mentioned, to keep asking questions, to keep the finger on the pulse, to make sure that, have we looked at what was the diversity slate? What was the slate of people that we looked at, either for a project or for a new business pitch? Why is this person included or not included? So asking the question so it becomes normative, so we change the habits in the industry, but also what are those three key goals of things that you want to do as a brand, as you want to do it for corporate reputation, for employer branding. So what is the narrative that you want to tell? What is the CEO's responsibility and narrative in their personal why? And how are we holding them accountable? It's, you can't be allowed to say it's the right thing to do. You can't even be allowed to say it's good for business. You have to say, this is built into my strategy because it's going to support the people, it's going to support the stakeholders, it's going to support the communities. What are those measurable things that are going to make the difference? And so holding people accountable to, we talk about 7 stakeholders. So what are the 7 stakeholders that are important to a corporation, to a brand? And it's the people that are inside doing the work, and that mirroring what you're saying you want to do externally is critical. So we hold them accountable. We ask for specificity as well as a strategy and intentionality. People get caught up in just the messaging and the words without the action. And, especially young people, regardless of their race and ethnicity, they're looking for action. They're looking for specificity. They're looking for measurable change versus just the talk of saying that you care.
Time's up on rhetoric, y'all. I hear that, Carol. Thank you for that. Yes. Amen. Amen. Brian, I want to and this one's a little personal to me because I work in Black media. And Black media entities have been extremely vocal and really speaking of accountability, wanting accountability around these major brands who put up the black squares last year and talked about how important this moment in this work is. And they're calling them to account around spending directly with Black media companies. Can you talk a little bit about what your organization and your role can do to support or clarify or amplify that message coming from Black media entities?
Yeah, Yeah. So thank you for the question, and I would answer it this way. So as my job as a commerce strategist, so I represent the retailer a lot internally within our agency, and I'm almost a signal, and we actually have a signal product that actually helps people understand ecosystem. Shameless plug out there. If you want to know more, hit me up. But but as we think about like the Targets of the world, the Floors of the world, they're making big bets. These retailers are placing big bets on underserved communities, BIPOC communities, women-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses. Two examples. Sephora is focusing an accelerator program specifically focusing on women of color to fulfill their diversity goal on shelf. What does that mean for our clients? That means there's going to be less space for an established brand to participate if the local community is going to have a bigger. So if I'm 14% of the population, but the shelf is 20% Black-owned, that's an opportunity, right? It's also happening at Target, right? So Target has been doing this for a while and is now starting marketing and advertising this. So they're leveraging a lot of their media. Again, we're working with them a lot to help them with this. So as brands coming on board, working with us as an agency, I like pioneering things. I like transforming things. It's one of the reasons why technology is interesting. As we move from brick and mortar into more of an e-commerce, digital first environment, these brands have an opportunity to participate without necessarily having the same backing as a Coca-Cola, right? Now they can participate, and we have the technology and insights, as well as the vendor partners as creative content as well to bring to life new experiences that these brands could, frankly, gain share faster than anyone could even track them because they're not necessarily an IRI or a Nielsen report quite yet, right? So understanding how the landscape is shifting and media is driving that. So if you think about what Group M's doing, there's a lot of programs and opportunities, but the conversion of that is what I do, and helping them understand where across Target or a third-party ecosystem of Rondell they need to be participating to reach that millennial mom with kids who's trying to figure out whether or not she goes to the drive-thru or walks into the store.
I have a quick question, and I'm going to get to you, LaToya, because I saw a lot of very beautiful head nodding from you. But I have a question. As somebody who works in Black media and produces this content for Black media outlets, what could we be doing to be even more attractive to the brands in this moment, other than just being Black?
You want me to talk about that one?
Okay, go. Yeah,
okay.
Please, anybody. Let's talk about
No,
it.
that's fine.
I'm trying to get. Listen, y'all. I'm trying to get these bags.
That's your question. She's plugging this up.
No, it's okay. And then, and we'll do it offline too, Ebony. Don't worry. So I think that so Brian actually talked about a lot of the brands that I've actually had the privilege of working with from the ground up to getting them to this point of leveraging data and insights and all the things we know about consumers to really having them create real tangible strategies from a media and marketing perspective and now merchandise perspective for the Black community. So it's really good to kind of see how something that didn't exist or, were kind of like these disparate thoughts and ideas actually come to fruition and is something tangible that consumers can see. Now, as it pertains to Black media specifically, so Group M recently announced their 2% pledge that is focused on Black-owned media. And so what that basically means is that we are working with our clients to direct 2% of their media advertising dollars into these partners. So here's the reality of the landscape, right? And maybe I'm giving away all the secrets, but Ebony, you asked about what and the content partners do, right? So 2% of the investment of very large clients, such as a Target and an Uber, and I won't say other clients' names, but the ones that were announced themselves in the press release, that's a significant amount of money, right? So we might be looking at the percentage, but it's the percentage of their budget. And so what we need to make sure of, and as you think about yourself as a content creator, is really bringing unique stories. I think that what we're seeing right now from the overall landscape is that we need refresh narratives. We really do. And so really bringing those interesting and unique stories. So therefore our clients feel as though they're aligning themselves with something that's new. They're aligning themselves with something that is true to their millennial audience or their Gen Z audience, the same target consumers that Brian is working so diligently to get into the store. So it's really about how are we connecting the storytelling from the content creators, making sure that that's attractive. So therefore, when we think about that, the money that we're going to be allocating from a 2% perspective, you are top of mind, right? Making sure you're with a brand, and there are a number of brands on the Black-owned media side that are also able to deliver on the scale, which is going to be really important as well. And then also just thinking about the audience. Who are you creating this content for? Is it aligning with the goals and the KPIs of these companies when they're thinking about the Black consumer and what their overall messaging and unique value proposition is to these consumers? So it's not just a one track, it's really bringing it all together holistically. But I think the partners that are going to have the most success are the ones that are going to be willing to come to the table and really work through some of the kinks, because we have to be honest, there are some kinks in the media and advertising process that we need to be real about, and we need to be willing to collaborate through. We're talking about infrastructures and systems that were not necessarily designed with some of these smaller partners in mind. So we need to be honest and work through that. So it's going to take time. I think the pledge is a very amazing first step. And also along with the pledge came the dedication to content creators to make sure that the content in the inventory is there. But it's going to require a lot of work and collaboration.
Thanks, sis.
Yeah, look,
I wrote it all down. Got it. Thanks. Great.
those are some
All
great
right.
tips. Can I drop a couple of builds onto that?
Of course, Myron. Please.
And I'll keep them brief. I think that, I was talking with one of our content creators who curates a film festival down in Texas, and we were talking about changing and widening the aperture of what good content is, and not going through a single lens to evaluate it. Like, if we're going to diversify the sources and types of content and the makers, we also have to give some grace. We're not going to hit home runs every time, and that's okay too, right? So we have to convince our media partners, our clients, that these risks are worth taking, and that the same way we would innovate in technology and fail fast forward or other colloquialisms, we need to do that with our content too, and give these writers, these makers, an opportunity to bring that idea to life. They won't all be get outs. There might be an us. and it may not hit everyone squarely. Was that a clap? I didn't.
The shade, honey. The shade, honey. Go ahead.
But you hear what I'm saying. I love that it existed.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be a home run.
Yeah.
We was in the park, and we have to widen the park and let more people in so that we have these opportunities. So that's the only build. I'll leave it there before I clap at somebody else.
No, that's actually really gracious, Myron, and I'm glad that, because it does stifle the creativity when there's an unreasonable mandate of perfection, because we don't do that. We know in any other space. Yeah.
Well, we know what that's like when if you think you're only going to get this one shot, you create so much pressure that if I fail, I won't get another chance. And we see what it's like when you do have more chances, can be more free, and you can take more risk. We need to have that same latitude, that same grace, and offer that and encourage that.
And to build on the Black tax part of that, right? So that also forces you not necessarily to make a move if you feel a huge burden before you even get into work, right? Of taking care of others and whatnot, that your creativity will get stunted because you're more worried about the economic risk associated with the leap that you want to take. So that's all intertwined. Agreed.
Well, I was going to say, you all me up perfectly for the transition, and I'll start with your thoughts on it, Carol. The Black tax is real, which we all know is that unreasonable amplification of expectation that our counterparts don't have because their representation in spaces is so much more plentiful. Let's talk a little bit about mental health and wellness and taking care of ourselves, occupy these spaces many times as one of few or the only. What are your messaging points, Carol, suggestions, and maybe just shared experiences around maintaining that mental health piece and overall wellness?
Yeah, it's so critical. I mean, we saw the last couple of months how the CDC we're talking about the health implications and how racism and microaggressions impact our bodies and cause more inflammation. And I was shocked not surprised, but like shocked about what does that really mean. So in my coaching world life, in my Tangerine Watson recruiting life, I saw so much inequity around the experience. People were exhausted, especially people that worked in the agency world. And if you're the only, there's inherent burden, emotional, psychological burden, and it makes us, step back and not share. It makes us, and I'm a big fan of the concept, not a big fan of, but I always want to amplify the concept of the keep the head down syndrome. Not unique to Black people, but it's part of our cultural upbringing to keep your head down and just do the work. And it gets in the way. It does not serve us well because it prevents us from asking for what we need. It prevents us from advocating. It prevents us from our solidarity among ourselves and reaching out to colleagues to say, hey, how are you navigating this? Can you help me talk about this challenge? It prevents us from saying, hey, I just need to create some boundaries because I have, life crisis going on, with my family, whether it's COVID. We all have very extended families that we're supporting in a variety of different ways. If you're doing this, we're in a privileged place because we work in this business and we're responsible for a lot of other people that many people that don't look like us are not. How our culture expects us to support each other puts a greater burden on us, not only to progress, but to advance. So I can't say self-care enough. We, and especially in the intersection of women, we take on way more in terms of not only childcare, but family care and supporting our significant others and our parents. And so we forget, we're waiting for permission, and we have to give us the grace, our own selves the grace to get it, to ask for it, to make sure we're connecting in a powerful way. I'm so excited that our VMLY&R colleagues are doing just a networking session across the ERGs tomorrow for all Black employees, just to celebrate, to recognize the year we've been in, to celebrate our culture and to connect across, because there's so many people across WPP that are sitting in silence, sitting alone within their department and with their teams. And that is impacting your mental health and really not supporting your career and allowing you to thrive.
Excellent, excellent. Anybody else like to speak on this notion of what we need to be doing to take care of ourselves as we do this work, which is heavy, as Carol said?
The one thing I would say that, might be a little, I think it's a fair statement is don't be afraid to rest. And I would say that, it's not always the easiest thing to do, but I think sometimes we feel like we always need to keep going, especially in an agency culture. Let's be very honest, because we are very fast-paced, we are very transformation-led, and transformation happens quickly, right? We're working very quickly, even while we're still working at home. So I think that, you don't necessarily need just giving yourself the permission and not waiting for someone else to give it to you to just rest and use your vacation time. I say this to people, you'll be amazed at the people who don't use their vacation time, but I know it feels small, but in some instances we're not doing it. So being okay with that as well.
I'll jump in
So
on this
important.
one too.
Please, Brian.
I think,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, to build on that and just the isolation that struck me, because with COVID, working from home, there's a lot of, you don't have an opportunity to sort of get what does that person really mean, sort of low down. So I think there's a lot of probably suffering and fear going on. I know I personally have suffered from that, coming into a new culture, fast paced, not even knowing where the printers are or anything like that, right? In terms of just transitioning in a COVID, right? All those things happen, but I'm big on, I need help, asking for help. So I think individuals who are of all color, they need to get out of themselves and ask for help. But on the flip side, a challenge back to a John Cook and others who are listening in here, we have to have more accountability for our leadership. Just because we might deliver against the client brief and get the KPI number, how we did that matters too. And I've observed a lot of behavior that is suspect in where I come from relative to how people are treated and talked to. And I think just from an industry standpoint, I think our clients suffer from this too in terms of the pace. Slowing down could potentially be a good retention strategy. So we got to think about that in some ways, so people can actually catch up, say what they want to be heard, and actually get constructive feedback, not subjective feedback.
So powerful. I'll say this super quick anecdote. In my recent, expansion of my branding and work into the new race, it's been heavy and it's been a lot. Any of y'all watching it or reading any of the press around it? So, going to Carol's point, I was also raised, put my head down and do the work. Just stay focused on the work, and that's the thing to do. So, in my insistence of doing that, I had all this press and all this stuff, and I was doing all these things. And I started skipping my weekly therapy sessions and thinking, let me just focus on the work. I'll get to the therapy later. And then it occurred to me after I reached out, I did use my words. I told my executive teams at the network, I'm struggling here. I need some support. And they said, well, when's the last time you went to your own therapist? I said, well, it had been over a month, which is, I normally go weekly. They were like, not an expert here, Ebony, but it's probably not the thing to cut out of your routine in this moment. And of course, it seems very commonsensical, but I just use it to illustrate how I think those of us so committed to the work can sometimes make the mistake of prioritizing the work in a way that makes ultimately us unproductive. So I just want to encourage, and you said it, LaToya, resting, availing yourself to the things that support your mental health and well-being is good for business. Also part of the work. It's not the evading of the work or the procrastinating of the work. It's essential to the work. And I just recently kind of had that reaffirmed for me. In our final minutes here, I do want to ask everyone on the panel, and I'll start with you, Myron. We framed then around the notion of a Juneteenth celebration around Reconstruction 2.0 as we revisit the efforts to maximize what Black liberation looks like in full, again, economically, politically, and community-wise. What's one thing that you would tell Black people in this moment, or no in this moment, or a corporation even in this moment, Myron, to either establish or reaffirm a trajectory of what a Reconstruction 2.0 looks like? You could pick.
Okay. To keep it succinct, it takes all types of us. Not all of us are activists. Some of us are diplomats. Others of us are generals. Some of us are warriors. Some of us are poets. And we shouldn't judge or demean or snipe at what these contributions look like here and what this action looks like here. We're better served to be coordinated, right? And when we do coordinate, when we bring all that in together and place it in the right directions at the right times, it's like a symphony. We can get done amazing things in a short amount of time with small numbers. With dented instruments, we can still make great music. So I would encourage us to not give into cynicism, right? Juneteenth wasn't about cynicism. It was about hope over sorrow. And I think that us coming out of this year, we need to do that too. Place hope over sorrow, work together. It's about resilience and self-determination and not giving into the perceived threat, but being part of this perception of value and changing that narrative too. So that's my advice. And I try to lead by example with that.
Fantastic. LaToya?
That was so great.
That was great.
Yeah, that was so great. I go back to what you talked about, Ebony, in the beginning, just about the duration, the short length in which the first Reconstruction took place. And so when I think about that, and then I think about it through the lens of business and the clients that we work with, what I say is long-term commitment, right? And just understanding that the work does not happen overnight. The work takes commitment. The work takes diligence. It takes resources. And over time, you will see the benefits of that. But just really understanding that this should not just be a blip moment in time and that we need to see it through, and there needs to be continuity and long-term commitment.
Long-term commitment. Amen. Carol?
So two things. One is grace. We need to offer each other grace. We're going to do the best we can do. So whether you're a leader that, is struggling with a person of color, you're not sure how to get through, offer some grace because they're doing the best they can do. We're not always going to agree, but let's offer some grace in that. And when someone makes a misstep, inclusion requires us to get uncomfortable and to feel vulnerable. So offer some grace when we will all make a mistake, and we're not fragile. We are courageous, we're resilient. And I'm not talking about the Black people. I know we're resilient and courageous. I'm talking about those that are new to this conversation. You are not fragile. Lean into it, be accountable, and let's move on with grace.
Yes.
And Brian?
Yeah. Help each other, be open about it, recruit each other, be open about it, celebrate each other, be open about it. I'm really about, honestly, and then being inclusive. If somebody is asking a question and they're asking, don't jump down their throat. Like, try to pause and try to understand, because it's great if we talk to each other who look like us, but if no one else understands who doesn't look like us, doesn't know how to help us, then the problem's going to keep coming. It's going to be insanity, right? So our ability to be open, and when you see something, say something. I think a lot of this stuff is baseline, you're a kid, but like, be surprised what I see and I think what we all struggle with. And then I think as many safe spaces as we can create as leaders and managers of others, our ability to over communicate, I think, is going to be critical as we go forward, because there is a growing backlash of all the attention we're getting. And I think we have to make sure of people of color, we're paying attention to that too, and protecting each other as well, as more and more people get killed.
Yeah.
1,000%. I'll say in closing, for me, this is like Latoya pointed out, it was so short the first time Reconstruction. And in my heart space, I believe that was because there was never a real understanding of newly liberated Black Americans never wanting to seek displacement in this country, but only wanting to seek a space of equality and equity. And here we are in this moment, 2021, and I think that this is a moment where we can really pursue that long-term, sustainably, an adequate number of allies that do not look like us, that are buying into what would an America look like that truly creates space for its most basic ideals and principles. I believe we're here. I believe essential to that is to put a pause, like you were saying, Brian, on those kind of moments of instinctual self-righteousness that can come up for all of us, right? Black, white, and otherwise, and just reject that self-righteousness in lieu of the grace that Carol spoke to, and the patience and ability, as Myron talked about, to ask the questions. And then be prepared for the uncomfortable answers, and be prepared to learn. Carol, Latoya, Myron, Brian, I want to thank each one of you for your leadership and your insight in this important conversation. Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth.
Thank you, Ebony. Awesome job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now introducing Kelly Anderson and Shanice Gibson.
The transatlantic slave trade was the largest long-distance forced movement of people in recorded history. From the 16th to the late 19th centuries, over 12 million. Some estimates run as high as 15 million. African men, women, and children were enslaved, transported to the Americas, and bought and sold primarily by European and Euro-American slaveholders as chattel property used for their labor and skills.
African men, women, and children arrived in North and South America, the Caribbean, and Europe. This impact and influence of the African diaspora is reflective of music and dance across multiple races, ethnicities, and religions across the globe.
For Black Americans, music and dance was not only a form of celebration for marriages, births, and birthdays, but also as a mode of storytelling and freedom, since communication may often be limited and monitored.
Dance have not only been a form of expression, but celebration that often culminates for many Black Americans on Juneteenth. Juneteenth celebrations will include dancers, musicians, parades, old Negro spirituals, and modern music to acknowledge our history and celebrate our future.
Last year was a time of reflection and action. Although more work needs to be done, Fluorescent wanted not only VMLY&R, but our clients, friends, and family to truly experience Juneteenth as the Black community does, which is a time for joy.
Please join us for our Juneteenth Juke Jam, featuring musical artists Valerie June and KAMAUU and Joshua Henry.
In addition to these amazing artists during the Juke Jam, we'll also be highlighting the musical talents of our own employees. First, Cleveland Thrasher from our Detroit office will be performing original music, and we'll close with a DJ battle, A Tale of Two Cities, with our two favorite DJs at VMLY&R, representing ATL, DJ Shermsky and Shaun Campbell. Enjoy the Juke Jam.
Hello, I'm Valerie June. Thank you so much for joining me for this Juneteenth Jam hosted by VMLY&R and Fluorescent. I'm going to play a song from my new record, which is called The Moon and Stars, Prescriptions for Dreamers. And on the record, I play the guitar for this song, but I'm going to play it on the banjo for you today. Just for you. Here we go. When the race is run and the goal is won, the cavalry come dancing in the sun. It isn't, I know, I can't let you go. It isn't, I know, it's not suitable. Say I, say I, say I, say I, say I, say I. It's what will we do, and where will we be if it's not you, if it's not you but me, if it's not you, if it's not you. As the curtains close on a soft show, a cavalry come dancing in the sun. It isn't, I know, why the bright stars glow. It isn't, I know, it's not suitable. Say I, say I, say I, say I, say I, say I. What will we do? Where will we be if it's not you? If it's not you and me. If it's not you. If it's not you. Why the bright stars glow? 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 If it's not you, if it's not you, why me? To heal the racial divides and challenges and struggles of our past, it's going to take you and me coming together and shining fiercely with all of our energy and all of our might. I believe we have the power to create a new reality that's more conscious of each other and more mindful and kinder, a sweeter world. That's what I want to see for my little nieces and nephews. Some of my musical influences I can share with you today. Miss Etta James, I gotta tell you, I love her voice so much. It's so authentic, it was so pure and so powerful, and what an incredible person she was in so many ways. This is Lightning Hopkins. I don't know if you can see him too well, but he's a badass guitar player, I'm telling you. And the man's voice is it'll break your heart wide open. I also have been digging for many years this Bobby Blue Bland record. It's killer. It's so great. It's so wonderful to hear him just singing all of his beautiful blues songs, but also he throws in the horns and the strings, so he takes it to a totally different level. This is a Lee Dorsey record. It's got a bunch of Lee Dorsey songs on there that are just dance worthy, I'm telling you. I've been getting down to this one throughout the pandemic. It's been awesome. And the last one I'll share with you today is a Skip James record. Skip James, woo! You'll never hear a voice as odd and strange and high coming from a man of blues as this one. Skip James's voice is so authentic, it's so powerful, and so piercing. And he sings a song about a beautiful song, actually, that I love so much. It's a Hard Time Killing Floor Blues. And when you hear it, you'll never forget that sound of his voice piercing your ears. I know I have an odd voice. My voice blends many of the towns and cities where I was raised in Tennessee. It blends all the roots. It blends things from Tina Turner to Dolly Parton to Carla Thomas. It is a very unique and authentic voice. And I know sometimes that might be hard for people to really grasp and understand, but I have such a passion for singing and for art and for creativity that I don't let that stop me from yelling at the top of my lungs or screaming and singing if I want to. So I've really enjoyed following all of these singers throughout my career and taking little things from them because they're so inspiring. I'll play you another song. Now, this too is going to be a song from my new record. It's called Smile. And with this song, I want you to think about what contributions African Americans have made to our culture, our American culture. And when I was first writing the song, I didn't truly know what the meaning of the song was. But over time, it has become very clear to me that this song is one of the songs that embodies what it means to live joyfully, despite the fact that we are an oppressed people. We have overcome so much, and we still have so much more to overcome. And how do we wake up in the morning knowing that we have the world kind of the weight of it on us, and knowing all of the heaviness? How do we wake up and not be bitter from the pain of the past? How do we wake up and find joy? So the song is called Smile. And it's about us finding that joy, finding that strength within. Because I do believe that our ancestors would not want us to be living separated, segregated, and lives of bitterness or sadness. They are bodiless now because they're no longer in colored bodies. They're not black, they're not white, they're spirits. And I think that as a spiritual person, that our spirits go beyond the color of our skin. And I try to see soul, and I try to see joy, I try to see light, and I try to see heart in the beings around me, even when we're in a body. And I try to celebrate the diversity of other cultures. And so Smile has become kind of my anthem for that celebration of our diversity. And it's one of those songs that came with the photograph after I had recorded it on the Moon and Stars Prescriptions for Dreamers. The photograph was of this old lady. In my mind, I saw this image. She was sitting on a porch, and she had been a slave. She was just out of the time where the slaves were free, and her porch was of a shotgun house. It was a railroad shotgun house. And for those of you who don't know, those are the houses where they're real thin, narrow houses. You'll see them in New Orleans or Memphis, and you can see front to back straight through the house. Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, back. And so she was on the porch of this very old and fallen down shack that we call a shotgun house or a railroad house. And she was sitting on a rocking chair. And as she sat in that chair, she started to cry. And she was crying for her children and for her children's children because she was a seer and she could see that the future was going to hold some very, very heavy obstacles to overcome, even though she was a free woman now. And so she was crying because she was carrying that weight of the past, of her life as a slave, and she was carrying the weight of the future, of what her grandkids and great-grandkids would have to live through. And so, as she started to cry, and she was rocking in that chair, something happened. And she gently began to smile as she rocked and she cried at the same time. And this is the image that I received with the song. It was during the time of the loss of John Lewis that we experienced last year. And when the image came and she started smiling, I knew that my purpose is not as a protest. I was too, immune to compromise, so I couldn't go out and protest. But my act of protesting is positivity, because I see positivity as a strong force of activism. I see positivity of choosing to wake up and decide that you're going to live joyfully and that you're going to inspire other people to live joyfully, be creative, and live with light in their lives. That is one of the most intense things you can do, because you wake up every day, you turn on the news, and it's not all about racism. Some of it is just poverty, injustice, killings, and mistreatment of others in so many different ways. And that can weigh so heavy on our hearts. But for us to decide, I'm not going to let that win. I am not going to let that define my purpose and my life. That takes such a strength. It takes such a raw, brutal to the core defiance and resistance of the weight of the past and the negativity of the present. And when we choose to do that, we rewrite the story. So this song, Smile, is about rewriting that story, y'all. It's choosing to smile. Here we go. All I could do was smile. Life started keeping me, getting me down. All I could do was smile. Well, I dusted it all. Guess I get back up. It was worth the fall. When the times got tough, there's a risk involved. Every time I call, I make it through. I make it through somehow. Whether you're on and a dream and so wide. All I can do is smile. Well, if you never leave, then your heart won't know. So you take that chance. So you just let go. And you keep knocked down. But that's how you go. All I can do is smile. All I can do is smile. All I can do is smile. There'll be tears in my eyes. All I can do is smile. I make it through. I make it through. I make it through. So wake up every day and choose joy, choose unity, choose beauty. It is one of the most political things you can do to choose beauty. And my hope for the future of music, with the awareness around the contributions that African Americans we have made to American music, my hope for the future is something similar to what I saw on a Spotify playlist recently. It was called Equal, and it has so many different races, so many different genres represented all on one list. I don't want to see a black country movement. I want to see a united country movement. And so that's my insulin pump. Yeah, I'm diabetic. I have no control over what it's going to do, when it's going to do it. I just go with the movements. And so what I want to see is a united movement. I want to see a movement of equality. I want to see equal pay for African Americans in the music industry. I want to see equal opportunities for African Americans in the music industry. I want to see appreciation, openness, and oneness of all of us. And I know we can do it.
When you look around most C-suites, you see a lack of diversity. We need to combine forces and disrupt the status quo. We need BECA, the Black Executive CMO Alliance.
I created BECA because it didn't exist. There wasn't an alliance of Black marketing professionals that would come together and end the cycle of it being lonely at the top and being the only one and isolated.
Our members shared their triumphs and challenges and provide support for each other. Learn through our members' individual experiences and collective brilliance to help transform business relationships. Elevate our members' visibility and expertise in the business world and beyond. Pay it forward. There's strength in numbers. See how you can help us evolve the face of the C-suite. Explore our website. BECA.
$77 a man. C to the level to the end. You can call me Mr. Peter Pan. You say I never be the man. Now I'm floating over haters, living down in Neverland. Hit you with the gamma Bruce Banner, your underground talk away, man, 6 feet, my tree. Hold up, now you wanna rap me? Day 2 not France, no mercy. I got the sun-sucking energy, I'm like Trebek, respect that you'll end up in jeopardy. None of y'all haters will step to me, y'all treat a kid like a leprosy. Matter of fact, I'm the remedy, I'm on that touch of supremacy. Got you in love with the recipe, ain't just for nothing, I'm presency. How is it more than just physically? Feeling destroyed, that's the enemy. I shine so bright, that's the God in me. Live long and proud, but truth always kind, cause pictures so perfect. Just give me eyes, cause there was no try. There was only do or die. You look surprised, yo, they no cry. Now you sitting on the passenger side. Bit about the fact that you cannot kill a cleave. You cannot withstand this energy. There is no hope for my enemies. I am no less than victory. War is the bloodiest currency. All of this money, it worries me. Lay on the cuff for some therapy. Confession may lead to some clarity. Donate my time to some charity. Knick-knack, patty whack, give a dog a bone. Pick up the phone, get in my tone. I'm in the zone, cooking you clones. Rip so cologne, I'm on the throne. Gorilla my hitter, please do not trigger. I just get bigger, towering figure. Beat in my chest, putting in work, no time to rest. Hopping no checkers, I just win chess. Did you really expect anything less? Please do not fret, no need to stress. You look upset, don't be depressed. I'm not normal, what I'm saying. Super duper, super saiyan. Eating ramen in Japan. Arigato to the fans. Took a little second just to reload, about to explode like a light bulb from a rifle with a no scope and a blindfold. Try to decode like a barcode.
See the price though, where your bright though, might as well fold. Now we know that I might go when you melt, how insightful.
Whoa, felt the deep down in your soul. This what your cats on the I rock the road. Think just might be getting out of control. Got you out here screaming. Underlay, you cannot rock with me. I am like Raleigh, you with some broccoli. Sever your crown, bachi la me. Aren't you so proud of me? Gotta love irony. This is my show. Check the apostrophe, sun in the moon. Ain't the god of me out of this galaxy. I'm an anomaly. You just a tragedy. Save your apology. Yeah, I got no time for that jack. Ships going down. Yeah, it's a rap. Don't want the top. These are the facts. Bitch, you would do. Tip of the hat. Snapped on the beat. I brought the heat. No stopping me. I got the key. I'm on the scene. Living my dreams. 77, I'm on.
What's going on, everybody? My name is KAMAUU, and it's good to see you. How you doing? I'm going to perform a couple of songs for you all, and I hope you enjoy. Here you go.
What would you need?
500 minutes till I get home. There goes my love, love when you're in it, and I'm not alone. There goes my love, there is no limit to holding on. There goes my love, we going to make it 10,000 years. Time and time again, I'm tired, you're timeless, baby. Time and time again, I'm tired, you're timeless, oh. There goes, wiggle, look at the present, oh, what a present, oh, what a present now, you don't even trade, no matter what, I love you very much, you love me very much, I love you very much, no matter what, I give you my life, no matter what you do, 'cause I bow to you, you are the one, the best of me I can never be, the recipe for the better me and giving you love, time and time again, I'm tired, you're timeless, baby, time and time again, I'm tired, you're timeless, oh, this world is so going, but this love is so strong, still is so easy to love you very much, even in the rush, when everything is rushed, just slow breathing in the midst of pain, shows me how to embrace it and love it all the same, my love, time and time again, I'm tired, you're timeless, babe, time and time again, I'm tired, you're timeless, Why don't you want to collaborate? Even though I made mistakes, I'm not a bad guy. I ain't all put together, but if you stick around, you're gonna see I'm getting better. And I did it just for you. I did it just for you. I did it just for you, and you just don't care. I did it just for you. I did it just for you. I did it just for you, and you just don't care. This could be a sentimental story for a brother. If you let a brother come and spend a minute with you, they got a penny and I got it from my lowest. Matter of fact, I send it with a penny. I can invest it, be the best investment you ever made. I'm invested, but you don't care. It's interesting, but you don't care. But you care about some less interesting guys. Those guys are like, just bring it back. Bring it back to me, cause I did it just for you. I did it just for you. I did it just for you, and you just don't care. I did it just for you. I did it just for you, just for you. You just don't care. So say that you want me, and you will put on the door. Say just for you. I did it just for you. I did it just for you. You just know. I did it just for you. Did it just for you. I did it just for you. You just know.
Thank you. Once again, my name is KAMAUU. Thank you for the opportunity to perform for you all. Second time coming, hopefully 2 times the charm. Had a little hiccup in the last song, but let's keep it raw and real and authentic for you all. So hope you enjoyed it, minus the hiccups and plus the hiccups. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you all have an amazing day. Peace.
Hi, my name is Asia Morris, co-founder and CEO of the Green Line Initiative. We're proudly participating in Give Black Week, which is a fundraising effort to raise $80,000 in support of small Black businesses. This support is crucial because historically these populations have been excluded from financial resources. The way that you can contribute is by going to giveblackKC.org, or you can text GiveBlackKC to 44321. Thank you.
What's up, y'all? My name is Joshua Henry. This is Hold Me.
Hold me, just don't hold me back. Hold me, just don't hold. I can't sing underwater, holding my breath. All these words in my heart can't go unsaid. Big dreams in your love, big dreams in your love. Don't make me choose between. I need you right here, need you right here. I need a guarantee. Hold me, just don't hold me back. Hold me, just don't hold me back, no. Hold me, just don't hold me back. Hold me, just don't hold. I know it sounds selfish. I know it ain't right. Now, but should your love share the spotlight? No, you know all my passions. You know the only way I fly. One hand holding yours, one hand towards the sky. Hold me, just don't hold me back. Hold me, just don't hold me back, no. Hold me, just don't hold me back. Hold me, just don't hold. Now I cannot simplify what I am, can't compromise. At the crossroads, hoping that you'll hold me. Don't let go, don't let go. Hold me, just don't hold me back. Hold me, just hold me, just don't hold me back. Hold me, just don't hold.
Thank you. That was Hold Me from my debut EP, Guarantee. My name is Joshua Henry, and it's an honor to be here with you at the Juneteenth Juke Jam. Yes, what a name. Today I wanted to share some thoughts, some original songs. I wanted to share some of my favorite Black artists that have inspired me. And to just jump right in, Prince is one of those artists. Just authentic, unashamed to be who he is in his art and in life. D'Angelo for sure. I'm gonna rattle off just a few. Her, one of my favorite artists. Childish Gambino, Janelle Monáe, Anderson .Paak, artists who write their own music and play their own instruments. You don't have to write your own music to be one of my favorite artists, but I really appreciate that because that's one of the things I do. And so I'd like to share with you another song, and this is Guarantee.
Halos I paint on my forehead. Forget your pain, watch me instead. I shoot your bliss. I plead the click like what I did. Keep your eyes down on me. guarantee it. Hey, hey. Don't look up, just look down. They don't know what we found. They don't know. I'm your dopamine, open me. I'm here right now. Right now, baby. I like what you said when you saw what I did. Daylight to the bed. I'ma ride your hip. Ow. Keep your eyes down on me. Everything that you need, I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Hey, hey. Run away, you do you. You won't come right back. Ooh, I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Hey, hey. You know you miss these buys, these tries, these days of our lives. Throwbacks, flashback Fridays. You pray, Lord, let me get back. Let me get you caught up. Everything I bought up. Woo! Everything you can't afford. Double click this bliss. I know your wish list. Took the pick, fixed it to your every desire. Look at me, I you admire. Check the blue check. These take you higher, higher. Nah, baby, don't run. Don't we have fun? Don't I show you what you've never done? I need your love. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. You like this one? Keep your eyes down on me. Everything that you need, I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Oh, babe, run away, you do you. You gon' come right back. Ooh, I guarantee it. I guarantee it. I guarantee. Yeah. So that was Guarantee. Thank you for listening. Great to be here on Juneteenth, in the Juneteenth Juke Jam. One of the things I'd like to see in terms of Black artists moving forward in the music industry is less boundaries with genre. I remember, as I started knocking on the door of the music industry, they were like, okay, so you want to get in that, Usher vibe, you want to get that Brian McKnight vibe, or you trying to get that? And that just, I love both of them, but, I want to be the full artist that I am, use my entire voice and talk about all the things that I want to talk about. So I'd like to see more continuation of the breaking down of those genre walls. And I want to share with you this one last song that I think is about hope. And while a Black artist didn't write this song, I think the sentiment of Juneteenth is in it, talking about a better day ahead. The sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrows till there's none. When I'm stuck with a day that's gray and lonely, I just stick up my chin and grin and say, yeah, tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow, you're only a day away. Yeah. Whoa. gets gray and lonely, I just stick up my chin and I grin and say, tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow, you're only a day. I'm gonna say it again. Tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow, you're only a day away. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. My name is Joshua Henry. You can check out my debut EP, Guarantee, anywhere you get your music. Happy Juneteenth. God bless.
For this next segment, please welcome Jewel Mensa.
Awesome. Well, I am joined by the legendary Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who are joining us today to honor Black Music Month. So please join me in welcoming the two of the most known producers in the music industry, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. And you know, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be called legend. I guess that's better than old. You know, we sometimes say aged. We're aged. You know,
classics.
Classics. Yes, there's other nice words we can put on it. We've been around a long time, but it's been great, and we just appreciate the journey, and that's what we're really here to celebrate is the journey, which is Black music, which is, you know, played obviously the major part in our life and raising our kids and taking us around the world and meeting people and just all the things that happen in life. That connectivity is amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, I know y'all wouldn't call yourselves legendary, but I think it's fair to say you've helped shape the sound of pop music today, right? Working with everyone from Janet and Michael Jackson, Usher, Yolanda Adams, Mary J. Blige, and much more. You know, where do you get your inspiration from between the two of you? And you know, knowing that you're from Minneapolis, how did the Minneapolis music community grow to become such a force for Black music?
Well, as far as inspiration, I think that I would go back to the names you mentioned. I mean, when you mentioned people like Yolanda Adams and like, you know, Mary J. Blige and Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson, and, you know, those names are very inspiring as songwriters to us. Like when we hear those names or we meet those people, we feel inspired to write songs for them or want to produce them. So I think that's part of it. As far as growing up in Minneapolis, I can tell you that for me personally, Minneapolis was always a great arts town, meaning there was theater, there was symphony, there were art museums, there was a lot of great culture there. And even people like August Wilson, who have obviously went on to have great Broadway success, but his plays would always mount in Minneapolis. That would always be the first place he would do his plays. So it was very much enriched in culture. I was brought up, you know, loving symphony orchestra, loving theater, loving art, and all of those things. So being young, and then my dad was a musician also. So I had my dad's, you know, influence in my life also. But it was a great, it was a great town to grow up in if you were a musical person. I mean, there were challenges, obviously, but it was great. And obviously it was the town that I met, you know, Terry Lewis. So that was probably the most pivotal point of my life, and continues to be the most pivotal point of my life, is obviously meeting my partner.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jimmy Jam. Likewise with me, meeting Jimmy Jam was one of the pivotal points in my life. But I'll tell you, like, my musical experience growing up was just the family listening experience. And music was everywhere, being played at all times. So, you know, I'm listening to my great aunt playing some Ray Charles records, and I'm listening to my mother playing Bobby Blue Bland, and, you know, she's playing all kinds of stuff. There's Little Richard at my great aunt's, other great aunt's house. There's every music everywhere and every type of music. Then my brother brings in some Black Ivory or some Spinners or whatever he would bring. And then we had a Sun Up to Sundown station, and then, you know, you would hear all the latest Kool and the Gang records, and, you know, so music was everywhere. So that was the inspiring part about it. And I'm a big group person. I love groups because I love how groups feed off of one another. Like the members of the group all bring something different to the party. So you get like a really rich gumbo. And man, when I started to see groups like Earth, Wind and Fire, who brought like the spiritual aspect of life into popular music, it was amazing because, you know, once again, at that age, you have to go to church at least 3 times a week. You know, we were doing Sunday school, we were doing the church service on Sunday, and that's back when there was no like kids church. You go to real church. Sit down, shut up. So all those things would feed into like your perception of music and your love of music, but it also made you inquisitive because around you in Minneapolis was all kinds of music that you'd never heard at home. There was polka music, there was real pop music, there was rock music, there was soft rock music, there was all kinds of other musics that would be around you, and those things all became part of your education. And as we grew to become musicians, we all actually almost forced into having to learn those, to perform those, because they were always part of the requests that people would have. If you played, you were playing a club or a ski resort, and you know, folks would get a little bit tipsy, and you know, white folks would come over to you and ask you to play a polka. You'd have to figure that out, or you'd have to play some country. You'd have to play some rock. So you always had to, you know, be on your P's and Q's about things. You had to, you know, dot that I and cross that T by knowing the music, by having gears, being able to shift to whatever it was to make everyone in the room comfortable. And I always say, you got to have the seasoning. And the seasoning is being able to get out there, and you really don't really get seasoning until you get booed a couple times, because that makes you know that that you don't have it yet. You got to figure it out to the point where you can season that flavor enough in there so people are happy and everybody's, oh, I love you guys. You know, we used to, at the end of the night, man, the people would be a little colder in the beginning. At the end of the night, they would just love us. You know, people that we didn't know would be hugging all up. I love you guys. You know how they do that. Yeah, Tara. Yes, I love it. So that just became part of the process, man. But Minneapolis was a great scene for music.
Mm-hmm. I love hearing that, you know, and you talk about the seasoning and also, you know, facing adversity and actually what happens when you hear no, and turning that into the thing that drives you to get the yes that you're craving for and actually trying to find. So hearing that from y'all makes it that much more powerful, because, you know, to date you have over, you know, 40 top 10 hits in the US alone. And so that is to say that you all have the seasoning. You got the seasoning, and you're hearing that just brings that back to the fact that, you know, your craft doesn't really end, and it continues to grow. So have the events of you know, recognizing where you came from, and looking at your trajectory in music, you know, have the events of last year of 2020 inspired the music that you're making now, and especially with Minneapolis being the catalyst for a change that it is now?
Well, one of the things too, and it kind of bridges to the first question, and Terry talked about, we talked about things from a musical level, but when you talk about adversity and you talk about the challenges that existed. I mean, the challenges that existed for us as we were growing up were the same challenges that exist for, I think, all Black people, which is, but in our particular case, we played R&B music, and the clubs that booked, all the big clubs, would book white bands to play R&B music. They wouldn't ever book our band. And so what we did was, rather than trying to, keep knocking on the doors and complaining about, how come you're not letting us play and all of that, we decided to put our energy into being entrepreneurs. And by that, what we ended up doing was, this was before, internet or before social media or any of that stuff happened. But we went to, there was a hotel downtown Minneapolis called the Dyckman Hotel, and it was going to be torn down. It was basically a condemned building, but it was still kind of open, and they had a big ballroom. And we went to them and we said, hey, what are you doing with your ballroom? And they said, nothing. And we said, can we rent it out? And we'll do like a deal, like, we'll take the door, like we'll charge $3 at the door, and we'll take the door. And you guys, whatever liquor sales you guys have, that's all you. And so we were able to strike a deal. And we went to the, like Terry said, the sun up to sundown station. And we did like a little promotion. And they talked about, hey, we're going to be down at the Dyckman Hotel, blah, blah, blah. And so the next thing you know, we printed up a bunch of flyers, right? And put them on the windshields of cars everywhere, right? So that weekend when we did our first one, I think it was a Saturday night, we got like 1,500 people to come. And meanwhile, the clubs that wouldn't let us play were all sitting empty. So the club owners were all like going, wait, where's everybody at? And then people were telling them, oh, they went to see the band you wouldn't book. They're doing their own gig over here, But what it taught us was that, there's great things. What do they call it? Making lemonade out of lemons or whatever. I mean, it's kind of like, that's the thing that challenges you. But what we realized was, it wasn't about that we were talented, because the talent meant nothing if there wasn't a place to showcase the talent. So we took the control of that also. And I remember when the clubs, after we were successful doing it, then the clubs were all coming to us and saying, hey man, come and play at the club. And we're like, no, we're good. We're just gonna keep doing our thing. And that's what we did. So all of those were lessons, just like Terry was saying too, about even learning to play other types of music, polkas and country music, and all of those kinds of things. That was all part of our seasoning, as Terry likes to say, that was all part of our seasoning. So all of those things were really important. The events that are happening in Minnesota now, or Minneapolis now, I mean, the town to me has always been a very progressive town in its attitudes toward things. That doesn't mean that prejudice doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that all of those things don't exist. I do think that in Minneapolis, it was always covered up, or not, I wouldn't say covered up, but it was always maybe disguised a little bit because there was Minnesota Nice, what you called Minnesota Nice, where people were very polite to you. And people were if there was racism, it was very polite racism. It wasn't it was like, not like what you hear about in the South, where they're like, get out of here, nigga, and all that. It wasn't that up there. It was very polite, but it absolutely existed. And so I think those were the things we grew up with. We grew up with, Terry always said, when we'd leave the studio at night, we'd be driving and we'd get pulled over by the police, and it'd be like, what did you do? And it'd be driving while black. That would be, DWB. That would be the charge. Particularly if you had, you had a nice car. I remember our first studio, we were across from, I think it was a funeral home, right, Terry? And I remember they used to call the police because we'd be there, 1 or 2 in the morning working on music. But there'd be a Ferrari and a Range Rover, and there'd be like really nice cars, and it'd be like, oh, they must be doing drugs over there, and there must be some sort of, so it was all these different perceptions and stuff that you have to kind of deal with. But for us, the music was the thing that united everybody, because that was the thing, like Terry said, at the end of the night, maybe going into the night, people didn't really like what we were doing or whatever, but by the time it was over, the music was the thing that connected us and bonded us together. So to me, there was a lot of prejudice and a lot of racism and things that music helped solve those problems. And I think that was what was important for us to be a part of something like that.
Yeah, and music is one of those things, or just, I call it being exceptional. I won't even say music. I totally embrace my blackness, always will, forever. in my house, if you come to my house, there's African art all around you. If you look in my library, there's books about the history of Blackness. That's just part of who I am. I was brought up in a scenario when I moved, in Omaha, where I was born. We grew up, and it was always talked about being Black and your Blackness, your heritage. When I moved to St. Paul was the same way, because there were so few Blacks that the community had to embrace itself, because it wasn't embraced necessarily by the outside world. And when I moved to Minneapolis, it was the same thing. So we ended up at places like a community center called The Way. But Blackness in my life has always been embraced. It's always been a part of it. And, I don't see why anyone would have a problem with that. So when you ask how it reflects on us, even in our musical endeavors, the first group we signed was called The Sounds of Blackness. So it reflects in everything that we do. When you talk about Minneapolis and prejudice, there's prejudice everywhere. We know that, but the more you become exceptional, in certain respects, the prejudice becomes lessened. But for those who don't know you, it's still a part of it. So the police that doesn't know me, he stops me and throws me in the middle of the street on the hood until he finds out, oh, you're that one. Okay, then you're okay. But in Minneapolis, the same things that are going on now, as I reflect in my life, they've been going on forever. The only difference now is a camera. People have a camera, you can see it in real time. And and it's not a disputable thing at that point. So you can't say that, oh yeah, no, he was doing this and this. You can make all the negative innuendos about what a person is and what a person was doing. But now you can actually see what your reaction to whatever he did was. And I always say it's just as preference and attitude in policing and in other ways, because people as individuals aspire for their freedoms. And I always say, you should want the same thing for everyone that you want for yourself. And if you can't want that for everyone else, then you don't deserve it yourself.
A word.
How about that? So, when you start talking about your freedoms, we're all free to fit in. My freedoms stop where yours begin. Okay, it's like I can't overrun your freedom. I can't just disregard your preference. You can't make laws telling me as a person I can't play music loud on the bus, because then I'm not free, right? Right. I should be able to do that. I can go to jail for playing music on the bus, but you're going to tell me that as a policeman I can put my knee on somebody's neck until they die, and that's okay? It's a little odd. So I'm just bringing, it's common sense, but common sense is not common in this world. It's preferences. You want to turn it on when you want to turn it on. But if that guy under that knee is your son, how would you feel? If that guy under that knee was you, how would you feel? How would it be then? Would it be okay? Would it be exceptional? Would it be acceptable? I don't think so. So I don't think nothing's changed but the date. And until we get our attitudes aligned and wanting the same thing for everyone that we want for ourselves, we're gonna have these problems. But it does need to change.
Yes. Thank you both for that. I mean, Terry, you're bringing up something that I think is so on point, right? Which is the rule of exceptionality, right? When it comes to Black artistry, and really just Blackness in general. But then that rule does not really extend to anything that Blackness touches, right? Which is actually everything when we are talking about this country. So to that extent, right, the question of where is it applicable to be exceptional in certain scenarios and states, right? Where, once your name is now known, then it's like, oh, okay, well, that's that one. I didn't know that was you. Should then the treatment and all of these sort of microaggressions that come along with that, do not erase that exceptionality. And so thank you for touching on that. And with that, I'm just curious, there's very much an intentionality to who you work with, and the sounds that you've helped actually shape for the American soundscape. I'm curious as to, has that changed, based on the events of last year? Are you looking at the artists or brands that you partner with, or collaborate with in a certain way, or are you looking at the work you're doing through a little bit of that lens now? Or are you still sort of to your North Star, staying on track with your vision from when you created this master duo?
Well, I'll tell you, Jewel, like, brother, I never forget what North is. I always have my moral compass in order. Mm-hmm. I know what I like, and I know what I don't like. The people that we work with are people that inspire us to do what we do. And we're privileged to do, first of all, what we do, because we're only mere vessels. Like, all music is a gift from God, and then we have to treat it as such. And as it comes down and comes through us, we have to be responsible with that gift. That gift can't be something that you take lightly. So the messages that we try to put out there for people to digest is really important to us. Therefore, the artists that deliver it are very important to us. And we treat them, those are our brothers and sisters. They are a part of our family, and we love them dearly. So, the projection is everything. I have there's a concept about, I'm sure you probably heard the phrase, you are what you eat. And then I always say, I change that to consume. So if the old, what do they say, the Chinese proverb, you order shit, you eat shit. Yeah, well, you order shit, you eat shit. You eat shit, you are shit. So we try to make sure that we don't serve shit. We want to serve something that's wholesome. Music is supposed to be wholesome. It's a divine art. And so we approach it from that standpoint. And on any given day, you can come in the studio, and that's all we're talking about is what kind of positive messages can we purvey? Like, love is always part of it, but there's different kinds of love. There's the reality of love, because sometimes love don't love you back. So I always try to keep everything in its place, but letting you know that it's okay to love without being loved back. But I mean, there's a time limit, an expiration date on everything. So, okay, so we do a song like Human, where, hey, I messed up. I was out cheating on you. And then the comeback to that is, because the reality is, who's making love to your old lady while you was out making love? So when you come back to it, while we were apart, I was human too. And see how you take that. So if you want someone, once again, to give you a certain respect and a certain love, then you have to give that same respect back. You can't want it one way for yourself and not want that way for everyone else. So we absolutely, to make it short, we love the artists that we work with, and we choose them because they inspire us to do what we do.
I think the foundation of what we did, Terry mentioned it earlier, Sounds of Blackness. For us, when we started our company, Perspective Records, when we started that label, which was 30 years ago, we started that label. And the reason we started it is because we felt that there were groups and there were music that wasn't out there that people needed to hear. It wasn't necessarily what they wanted to hear, but they needed to hear it. And that was the reason we did that. And we did Sounds of Blackness as our first album, or our first release, very simply because, if you have aspirations business-wise to build that business, so you're going to build that tall building, right? You want to build that beautiful tall building. But if you're going to build that 50-story building, you better dig that foundation at least 20 stories deep. Us, Sounds of Blackness was that foundation. And even on our new record that we're working on now, Sounds of Blackness was our first single. Because 30 years later, actually 35 years later since we started the project, it was important to lay that foundation down. We want everybody to be very clear where we're coming from. A lot of times we're trying to give people what we feel they need. You know, it's like when you're a kid and your parents tell you, you know, you say, oh, I want candy and I want cake and I want all of that, and that's what you want. But your parents go, no, but you better have some spinach here, and you better eat your broccoli or eat your whatever. Get the things that you really need. And I think where we're at in society right now, I think those things are even more important than they were. It's the reason that a song like Optimistic lives to this day and is totally renewed, because at every point you need some sort of optimism to do that. So that was our want. It was to try to do that back in that day and to try to create timeless music that would be soundtracks to people's lives as they live their lives, whatever those lives are. So those things foundationally are very important to us, and important then with the brands we collaborate with and the artists we collaborate with, as Terry said.
Yes, I love the sound of that. And also of just the talking about the foundations, right? Like the bedrock of the music that you're creating and the art that you're creating. And I think that's so powerful. And so as, you know, as you've both impacted generations of music, and really, how do you stay true to your sound, right? But continue to innovate over the years. And then you also talked a little bit about your upcoming projects. So I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about that and what we can expect from you in the future.
Well, I think the innovation is really important. To me, it's funny because we get asked all the time, you know, there's just the kind of music has changed or the music business has changed and whatever. And to us, yes, things always change. But I think the idea that, I think the delivery systems of music have changed. And we've kind of come up at a time where we feel very fortunate that when we came up, it was records, it was vinyl. And then cassettes happened, and then CDs happened. And now it's streaming. But the delivery system of how you receive the music is different, but still the music and the way that it makes you feel is the important thing. And that's the part we can control. We can't really control whether somebody decides to stream it or download it or listen on a CD or go get a vinyl. We can't control that part of it. But what we can control is when they get that music, the music they're hearing. So we always concentrate on that. And then I think because we've been around for a while, we have a nice toolbox to work with. We can work with analog tape because that's what we did back in the day. We can work with acoustic instruments, pianos, drums, all those kinds of things. But we can also work with drum machines. We can also work with, we have songs on our album, for instance, that the Babyface record was done totally analog tape, like in the old days, I guess you could say. But then we also have songs on our album that were done on the laptop that I'm talking to you on right now, that were done in our laptop. So the idea is we're not scared of technology, we actually embrace it, and particularly Terry. Terry has always been very forward thinking about how to do music, but use the new tools that are available to do it. And so I think that's the thing, we always try to keep it fresh and new. And we also, once again, that word inspiration, the artists inspire that, they really do. And I will say that for our album, the concept of the album really is what we call nostalgia. And by nostalgia, we mean the excitement when you hear something new, and that discovery moment is amazing. You always remember that first time you heard Babyface, or the first time you heard, you know, Mariah or Toni Braxton or whatever. You remember that. And so what we wanted to do with this album is take you back to that time where you're hearing a new song from them, but it gives you that feeling like, oh man, this reminds me of why I fell in love with them, you know? So that's kind of what we're setting out to do. And by being able to incorporate not only the obviously old technology, if you will, or the classic technology from back in the day, we also can use the latest cutting edge technology and do things like, you know, actually collaborate through Zooms or collaborate through, you know, at one point when we were mixing, our engineer was at our studio. Terry and I were each in our homes for COVID, but we were able to still communicate and use technology that exists now where we could listen to the mixes as they were going by real time and go, hey, turn that up, turn that down, those types of things. So it's really about just embracing all of the tools that are available to you and knowing how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were just born at a great time. We were born into a world that musicians played and performed live, and in order to get a song done, you had to have a group of people together. And that turned into what became the new age world of machines that could then generate the sounds of the people, and then one person could generate those sounds. And that morphed into the machine just generating the damn sound for you. You don't have to do nothing. It'll just make a sound for you. And that turned into, hey, let's just get one of those old records and that'll be the track. And then we'll just say some new words over it. And so we've been through all those different changes and we embrace them all. There's nothing wrong with them because ultimately you just want to make the product that makes people feel good. And whatever we have to achieve that goal is what we want to have. And we respect it all and we appreciate it all. Therefore, we use it all. So, Quincy Jones said it best a long time ago to us. He said, you're only as old as your ability to accept and process new things. So, I'll be 100 years old and still trying to figure out the technology. I'll never, I'll never say, oh, that's it. I'll never talk about the old days because, today's an old day.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow's the next best day. There you go, brother.
Yeah. Wow. Gems, you're just dropping so much knowledge right now. I love it. I love that. And I mean, just hearing your ability to take in the new technology without losing your sound, right? So, be it the 808s that you all pioneered really for pop. Like, let's credit you for that. But then also you talk about things like sampling and the sort of change and now everyone has a GarageBand on their phones and on their computers. It sort of liberates the art form a little bit and creates a more open society so that there isn't necessarily that much barrier to entering, right? And so to that point, I one of the last big questions really I have for y'all is, being who you are, what advice do you have for young Black artists, producers, entertainers who are now breaking into the industry or are looking to make their mark?
The thing I always say, and it probably sounds kind of cliche, but I always say be prepared. What I mean by saying that is, there's always kind of this thing that people say when we go sometimes and go speak to kids or we go speak to groups of people, and they say, oh, I want to be in the industry and I want to make music and I want to do what? And then we go, well, what are you doing? And they say, oh, I'm just waiting on my break. I'm just waiting on my break. I'm waiting for somebody to put me on, And so the first thing we always say to them is, okay, first of all, let's get rid of the word waiting. Let's then insert the word preparing. Because you shouldn't be waiting for your break. You should be preparing for your break, whatever that break is. And sometimes that break can be as simple as if you're a singer and you're in a room with us and we go, sing us something. If you're prepared, you just start singing. If you're not prepared, you go like, well, I don't have my demo tape with me and I don't have my whatever. Okay, that's lack of preparation. Also, people will say, I really like, you name an artist. I really like Drake, or I really like, Kendrick Lamar, or I really like whatever. It's like, okay, great. And they said, well, what are you going to do about it? Well, I don't know what to do. Well, all the information exists out there. So find out who's Drake's engineer, who's his producer, what label's he on, who's his A&R person. Like all of that is there. And then what kind of song do you hear him doing? Okay, well, this kind of song. So then you're basically targeting your approach. But you're preparing once again. So let's say you happen to run into Drake somewhere, and instead of stammering and going, oh my God, you go, oh, I got the song for you right here. It's right here. I'm going to send you the download of it right now, or whatever that is. So that's why I say preparation is so important. And to me, it's the key of everything in life. There's been times where back in the demo tape days, I remember talking to, with the Grammys, I remember talking to some people and they were saying, I said, who brought a demo tape today? And a couple of hands went up. And I said, okay, who has a demo tape? And all the hands went up. Everybody had a demo tape, but only a couple of people brought demo tapes. And I said, well, you knew I was gonna be here today and nobody brought a demo tape. I said, by the way, I can't take your tape, but the fact that you didn't even bring one when you knew I was gonna be here today, but even better than that I'm here, how about all the other people in the room? Because now everybody's here for the same purpose. So when you look around the room and you say, hey, I got a record, or I'm a producer, or I'm a writer, or I'm a singer, or I make videos, or I want to be an attorney, or I want to be a manager, or I want to be, you know what? All these people are all exist in the same room. Look at the person next to you and the person sitting over there. You have your whole infrastructure, whatever you want to build for your company, all in the room, all interested in the same thing. So once again, to me, it's preparation would be my one overall thing I'd say.
Yeah, I agree, Jam. And, you know, the other thing I'd add to that is I always go to the scripture part of it. And 2 Timothy 2:15 says, study to show thyself approved. And if you're going to play any game in life, you have to know what the rules are. But you absolutely have to know what the players do. If we play chess, you can't apply your chess checker rules to chess. So if you're going to play chess, you got to know what the king does, what the queen does, what the rook does, what the knight does. You have to know what all the players do. So you have to study. You have to know, okay, if you're going to be a producer, you have to know what a producer does. So you have to figure out your version of that, because as a producer, I know that a producer doesn't do just one thing. We learn from many people. And the biggest thing that I take away from all the people that I learned was that a producer doesn't just make the beat. Until you interface with the artist, until you can get a great vocal from the artist, or you can get a great performance on an instrument from the artist, you're not producing. A producer doesn't just self-produce. If I write a song, I'm not really producing. It's part of the production. Producing is when I have to interface with you and get your part down. And that's what a production is. It's the exchange of ideas, the exchange of energy, exchange of concept. So that's really important. You have to study people. If I'm going to work with someone, I want to know what they've done before. I want to know their history. Usually I'm a fan, so I want to know what I loved about them and where did they go wrong? Why did that record not work? Why did this record work? And what do I need to do to get them a record that will ultimately work, in my estimation? So that's kind of what we do in terms of how we tailor things for people and situations. So it's very important to know the game. So you have to study. And the last thing I'll say is don't take yourself serious, because there's always a replacement part. So, you leave your ego at the door and you walk in the room and get the work done. And that's my advice. And have fun and enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I was just going to say, have fun, definitely. The one thing you said that's really important that I want people to hear, people think of production as sort of a craft, but almost in a technical sense. But the thing that's really important, if the idea is to get the best performance out of the artist or the instrumentalist or whoever it is that you're working with, that involves psychology, psychiatry, sometimes chef, you have to cook, it's about the humanity of it is very important. And that to me has been the thing that we've, if anything we've excelled at, if you could put it like that, I think it's been that part of it, where people want to work with you and then you bring the best out. It's like if you're coaching a team, right? It's like certain players, you knew you had to jump on them really hard to get them to do. Some people you had to be kind of, be positive with them or whatever. You had to also figure out, with artists, some artists like to work late, some like to work early. Some can work a concentrated amount of time, you're gonna get 30 good minutes out of them, make those count. Other people, they're gonna last for 8 hours, 9 hours in the studio. And then you're gonna say that's good enough and they're gonna go, no, let's do it one more time, So you have to kind of know the personalities and all of that. And I think that's an important part of it too, is the technical side is important, but the humanity side is really the most important.
it's a human-centered job. Thank you for that. I think that is one of the most powerful things, because oftentimes, it's the craft, chasing the craft, you forget that. And this is something that I also like to bring up, because I'm an artist myself, but you cannot create art in a vacuum. And so hearing that is just reminds me of some of the things that I also try to bring out into the world and into my art. So thank you for that. And with that, I mean, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, y'all, come on. It's ridiculous. Can you please share a little bit about what's to come on Volume 1? What can we expect? Like, I'm hype. I don't know if you can tell. I'm so excited. I'm ready for the album right now, but y'all are saying July, so.
Oh, well, I will tell you we're really excited too, and I'll just give you a little quick background on how it happened for us. Was back 35 years ago, we started working on a Jam and Lewis album, and so around that same time, a guy named John McClain, who was the A&R person at A&M Records, he sent us the A&M roster, and he says, "Is there anybody on the roster that you want to do?" And we started going down looking at the roster, and our fingers both stopped at the same name, Janet Jackson. We said, "We'd like to do Janet Jackson." And he said, "You want to do, 2 or 3 songs?" We said, "No, we want to do the whole album." And he was like, "What, really?" And we're like, yeah, we're going to do the whole album. So anyway, we go in, and we're working in Minneapolis. So after a couple of months of work, John comes to town. We play him Control, Nasty, When I Think of You, Pleasure Principle, Let's Wait a While, Funny How Time Flies. We're like going, yeah, we're good, right? We're good. And like all A&R people at record companies used to say, "I just need one more." We'd be like, "What do you mean I just need one more? Come on, we got it, man." He said, "No, I just need one more." So we said, "Forget it, John." So anyway, we hop in the car, we put a cassette in. So, because we're back in the cassette day. Terry puts a cassette in, he starts playing songs. And about the 3rd song in, he goes, "Man, what is this?" And we said, "Oh, it's for our album." He said, No, I need that for Janet. That's the one I need for Janet." And we're like, "What are you talking about, man?" He said, "Play it for her. And if she likes it, give it to her." And I'm like, "Man, come on, man." So the next day we go to the studio and we just put the song on. Janet didn't know what we were playing. She's listening, just checking it out. She walks in the studio, she kind of points at us and she goes, when it goes off, she goes, "Who's that for?" And we said, "Well, you if you want it." And she said, "Oh, I want it." That song became What Have You Done For Me Lately? So it basically launched her career, ended ours, at least on the artist side of ours. And so over the years, when we would work with an artist, a lot of times we would say, "Hey, we're working on an album. Would you like to do something?" And they go, yeah, great. And then we get done with it and they go, "Oh no, I got to keep this for myself." And we're like, damn. So now fast forward to about 3 years ago, we were going in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And the year we went in was the same year that Babyface went in. So we're on the red carpet talking to the reporters and stuff, and they said, "What is it that you haven't done yet that you still want to do?" And I remember we looked over and we saw Babyface and we said, "Well, I haven't worked with Babyface yet. I think we want to do that." And we were like, "Well, I think we never finished our album. We were going to do an album at one point in time. That would be kind of cool to finish that." And then the third thing we said is, we would love to tour at some point and go and play our own songs, which we've never done. So those are the 3 things. So now fast forward to now, we've checked off the Babyface piece because obviously our single with Babyface, You Don't Know Nothing About It, kind of check that off. Our album is coming July 9th, Jam and Lewis Volume 1. And so the touring part, obviously when, COVID is all in check and everybody feels safe to go out again. We're going to obviously do some touring. We're going to curate some festivals for people and really bring, artists and great music together. So that's kind of the game plan. And I will say that we're calling it Volume 1 simply because there's a Volume 2, a Volume 3, at least we hope. We're going to just continue to make records. And because of all the artists that we work with, there's no way to fit everybody on Volume 1. So we have 10 iconic artists that we love. We basically made the record we wanted to make with, I'll call it no record company interference. No offense to a record company, but we made the record we wanted to make and just hope that it's the record that everybody agrees with us on and the artists that they want to get. So that's the story.
Yes.
Oh, and I should, by the way, and I should mention we have a brand new single from the album with Mariah Carey, called "Somewhat Loved." It just came out, and we're really excited about that too. And then a lot of great artists on the album, from Toni Braxton to Boyz II Men to you name it, Charlie Wilson to Heather Headley, because you got to have a Tony winner on the album. It's just really all the people that we really love. And enjoy working with. Back to that word, inspiration, people that inspired songs from us.
Yes. Well, with that, we will be listening to Somewhat Loved. And please, everyone, if you can, take some time. It's Black Music Month. Listen to some great music from legendary Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Be on the lookout for Volume 1 coming July 9th. Thank you for joining us, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And make every month Black Music Month.
That's right. Because it is. That is right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, please welcome Stephanie Small.
As we look to honor the activism throughout history, we must amplify that so many movements within the Black community were often led and began by the Black queer community. From the civil rights movement to Stonewall to Black Lives Matter, our LGBTQ+ family have been side by side with us, fighting not only racism, sexism, homophobia, and more, in pursuit of equal rights for all. As a proud ally to the queer community, I want to stress that allyship goes beyond the month of June and is bigger than slapping a rainbow on a logo. It's about showing up when representation is in the room and making the effort to learn and educate yourself. In celebration of Pride, our VMLY&R LGBTQ+ employee resource group has launched the Proud Pronoun Project. How people address you matters, especially for queer, gender, non-conforming, non-binary, and transgender people. That's why we've launched this tool to share our personal gender pronouns with the people we work with and beyond. Please visit www.proudpronounproject.com to discover more. This Juneteenth, we want to highlight and celebrate the life of Marsha P. Johnson. Intersectionality is an important part of all diverse groups and communities. We are not monolithic, and there's enough space to acknowledge and continue to fight for equality, no matter your race, gender, age, ethnicity, or faith. And now, Marsha P. Johnson.
Turn around, you're on TV, Marsha.
Marsha P. Johnson is remembered as an activist and free spirit, with flowers or Christmas lights in her hair, and said to be one of the first rioters at Stonewall in 1969. Before the term transgender entered the lexicon, Marsha called herself a transvestite or a drag queen.
When I became a drag queen, I started to live my life as a woman.
During her life, she and other trans activists struggled to be fully accepted in the gay community, which often excluded trans people. Marsha was often homeless, supporting herself through sex work and repeatedly arrested, but she attracted many friends to help her. A fellow activist once saw Marsha asleep under a table of lilies at a flower shop. The employees welcomed her because they thought she was holy. Once, a judge asked Marsha what the P in her name stood for. She explained.
Pay no mind Johnson. Marsha Pay no mind Johnson.
The judge, charmed, said, "And that's exactly what I'm going to do." She was released. She was well known in New York's Greenwich Village, where she became an icon after the Stonewall riots.
I was one of the first girls to ever come in drags to the Stonewall. 1969, when the Stonewall riots started, that's when I started my rioting.
As one story recounts, during the riots, Marsha threw a shot glass into a mirror at the bar after police entered, shouting, "I got my civil rights." Marsha was a founding member of the Gay Liberation Front, and she formed STAR in 1970 with Sylvia Rivera, a transgender woman and activist. It was revolutionary in its direct support for the trans community. Together, they opened STAR House, a shelter for homeless LGBTQ youth. She was also an advocate for those affected by HIV and AIDS and rejected the stigma and shame associated with the virus.
I think you should stand as close to them as you can and help out as much as you can. Including myself, I have HIV.
She remained devoted to her Christian faith throughout her life. Friends say she could be found praying in various churches, at times dressed in velvet, throwing glitter. Marsha died in 1992 at the age of 46. At the time, police said she'd taken her own life, a claim friends disputed.
I mean, it's hard for me to believe that she would commit suicide.
The case was reopened in 2012 as a possible homicide. Like Marsha, trans women continue to suffer from long-standing discrimination and violence. Her legacy reflects the ongoing struggle for transgender people to be safe and receive equal rights.
People to realize that we're all brothers and sisters and human beings in the human race.
Now with closing remarks, Erica Hatfield.
Happy Juneteenth from Fluorescent. But first, we want to acknowledge that as of June 1st, 2021, the month of June will also be recognized as National Caribbean American Heritage Month, in addition to it being Black Music Month. And of course, we want to wish everyone a happy Pride. And now to our Juneteenth call of action. We encourage everyone to support Black-led charities of their choice, but in collaboration with the VMLY&R Foundation, we will be supporting Becca and Give Black KC for the month of June. Please go to our website at vmlyr.com/Juneteenth to find out how you can support these organizations. And of course, this event could have not taken place without so many people putting in their time and energy to make this event successful. So I would like to thank our Fluorescent Juneteenth Committee, specifically my co-chair, Shauna Sanders, for all of the amazing work we did for Juneteenth, our partner agencies, ECW, Group M, VMLY&R Commerce, and WPP, and of course, our special partners, including BMG Music. And now, in honor of Black Music Month, we will close out with tunes from Wesley King. And make sure you stick around for the DJ Battle After Party.
Want to tell 'em up? It's a Shabbat thing. Suckling sing. Yard offering kick up. Rock wine. Ting-a-ling-a-ling. Dance silent swing. DJ ears stuck up in the beer bomb rhythm. Ting-a-ling-a-ling. Gold bell a ring. Knife and fork a fine for dumpling. Booyaka, booyaka, for Shabba ranking. Shabba ranks disappear with another man change. So them are the done to the biz, we have the key. Put the down to the key and turn them in a donkey. Yes, them are the done to the biz, we have the key. Put the down to the key and turn them in a donkey. Who they think they are? Yes, they can't allow me. I am the general in the DJ army. With not only I and cross all the T. And sit all the gal them tickle fancy. And anywhere we go, y'all gone crazy. Listen, ding-a-ling-a-ling, school bell a ring, knife and fork a fight for dumpling. Come for Shabba ranking disappear with here another man chin. So them are the done to the biz, we have the key. Put it down to the key and turn them in a donkey. Them are the done to the biz, we have the key. Put it down to the key and turn them in a donkey. You see, you see, you see, you see.
Her beauty's like a bunch of roses. If I ever tell you about Maxine, you older say I don't know what I know, but murder she wrote, murder she wrote, murder she wrote.
Action with him, a pretty face and bad character. Them the kind of living can hold chaka. Follow me. A pretty face and bad character. Them the kind of living can hold chaka. Say girl you pretty, your face it pretty, but your character dirty. Girl you just a act too flirty, flirty. You run to Tom Dick and also hurry. And when you find your mistake, you talk about you sorry, sorry, sorry. Come now.
Have a cozy corner where she jokes and where she jam. She know about Luke, Jack and every morning man. Make love with the coolie Chinese, white man and Indian. The wickedest kind of girl that miss a flyers go up and now do you heard about this girl? Her name is Maxine. Her beauty's like a bunch of roses. And if I ever tell you about Maxine, you older say I don't know what I know, but
big up all ghetto youth on a rich and sweet. All massive and crew, Michelle Lucillo just passing through. For real. Tell them Lucillo.
If I was a rich girl, say I'd have all the money in the world. If I was a wealthy girl,
Step up.
no man can test me. He impressed me, they Kareem is a legend.
Oh gosh.
'Cause I'd have all the money in the world. You can taste his wealth.
Oh, what kind of rich? Got a million rich. Them a kind of rich where you make man switch. What kind of rich? Got a million rich. Them a kind of rich where you make man switch. And if me rich, woulda take a man now for the street. And if me rich, woulda build up a school and teach. And if me rich, things woulda run neatly. And if me rich, coulda live out me life properly.
Say if I was a rich girl, na 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 na.
You hear?
Say I'd have all the diamonds and the pearls if I was a wealthy girl. I could pick and choose, gamble, play the horses, never, 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 never lose.
One day.
'Cause I'd have all the money in the world if I was a wealthy girl.
Get past the people, get past the hitman. Hitman. Get on down like. I
Well, sober people know what it's about. Going down to the crib and let it all hang out. Well, sober people knows what it's about. Where people give a sign and shake their hands and dancing to the music, James Brown band. They're dancing on the good foot. I got to get on the good foot. I got to do it on the good foot. Do it with your good foot. I said the long hair hippies and the afro blacks, they all get together across the tracks and they party. Oh, on the good foot. You know they dance on the good foot. Dance on the good foot. Ain't nothing going on but the rent. A whole lot of bills and my money spent. And that's on my bad foot. You know my face is getting short and I got the blues. I got a fucking job and I paid my dues on the good foot. On the good foot. I got to get on the good foot. Hey, on the good foot. Get on the good foot. Come on, hit it there. You got it. Did it. Get it. Shop it now. Come on, get it.
Basso. Sure feels good. Give me that song.
take it personal. Who not talk about done? You think me come for done? All me have to do is send for the new gun. Anything test dead. We just fly off dozen head. Down the mercy.
Kill them.
Duck a dill, dill, dill. Sell a boy get killed. Duck a dill, dill, dill. You better sign on no will. Duck a dill, dill, dill. A boy get killed. Duck a dill, dill, dill. Look up in the barrel. Limb by limb we a go cut them down. Send for the oxa. Take out the tongue. Limb by limb we a go cut them down. Send for the oxa. Take out them tongue. When them see me, see the hit man a come. See me, say me just can't done. See me, see the hit man a come. See me, say me just can't done. Them one tie, them one tie. They come a them funeral, them things say, them things say. Them on the general, them one tie, them one tie. They come a them funeral, them things say, them things say. Them on the
I believe in miracles now. Hey, where you from? Are you sex or flame? You sex or flame, yeah. I believe in miracles, yeah, yes. Since you came along, are you sex or flame? Lord, you sex or flame, yeah. Where did you come from, baby? Now, how did you know to come to me, girl? Hey, how did you know that I needed you badly? And did you know that I'd give my heart gladly? Yesterday, I was one of them lonely people, but now you're lying next to me, making love to me, yeah. I believe in miracles now. Oh, where you from? Are you sex or flame? You sex or flame, yeah.
Sometimes some back, some of them a rally back. We a road boy out and we no take back no chat. Sometimes some back, some of them a rally back, but we a road boy out and we no take back no chat. You full of big chat and can't defend that. If a jailhouse you come from, we sending you go back. You full of big chat and can't defend that. If a Bellevue you come from, we sending you go back. Cause with them there when they get around hot. When we looking the food for the pot. Man have him 16 over him back. 45 and we have a rampacker. Car bazooka and all the fig locker. When we moving, we move compact. Man we take a couple store, couple bank and shop. And policeman a top out we hotter. Judge I know we have to run left the spot. Dan the yachted dog at Sadata. When we come dance all of a block. Me say some a rally back and some of them dance back. We a road boy out and we not left a glock. And some a rally back and some of them dance back. When they killing at the place and the place off a place off a place.
This song, the big belly guys them talking, every day down sky talking, come to walking on the park. Hear what the man say move, when the man say move, when the man says move.
Now we got yo. Have a girl in each and every time. And you know worry about the dippy DJ, them every day, cause the whole of them a clown and them no worry. Them no worry. Change to the reckless way of living, I think easy. Watch this.
Tramp.
what you call me?
Tramp. You don't wear continental clothes or Stetson hats.
But I tell you one doggone thing, it makes me feel good to know one thing. I know I'm a
That's
all right, Mama was. And I know that love is all I know to do.
You know what, Otis?
What?
You're country.
It's all right.
You straight from the Georgia woods.
That's good.
You know what? You wear overalls, big old broke iron shoes, and you need a haircut, tramp.
Woman, you go. Ooh, I love Mama was. Grandmama. Papa too. Make you oh, that's all right. But I'm the son of a gun. On this side of
Come follow me, I'm not sure anymore. Oh, it's knocking at my door now. The faces that I knew, German is so sunny and blue. Now my man can see it in the sky. Then I saw it's already die. I miss me, oh my. I miss no, I man feel it and I man have to cry. When them ever stop, kill off them superstar. Bob Marley die, Jacob Miller die. Them kill Tennessee and them does out free. I know them want this Apache. But don't you know we love to fly. Boy, no man a die, I miss enough man a die. No man a die, miss enough man a die. Master God, me say, don't ask me why many more I go suffer, many more I go die. Jesus Savior, where them crucify, man, them flinging on the cross and all that crucify Jesus for Savior. I'm not sure.
New style, style and style can't spoil. All girls them jump and shock out for a while. Watch this.
Oh, not that.
You hear new style, new dance and lick. Fling your hand in the ear, then you rock, then you dip. Move to the drum and make your body kick. Step forward and come up back quick. That are the new style where the whole place I do. Rock, bogle, dance, some music sweet you. Bogle around the place night and day. So just rock, bogle, dance, some of your tune a play. I must sing on it that after no so bogle stay. She can't do it good, but she a rock same way. For real, me love how the girl them do. Rock so, dip so, to God them look sweet. Trust me, I love stand up and sit. Uptown, downtown, I rock to the beat. Jeremy and I try about him already. He better make Stumpy. Teach him this.
Hey. A new way for ball forward. Watch it again. Hey. Them not tell them a new style. I love a boy, I love a girl. Watch this. What did I say? What me say? Everybody, yadi. Need somebody, yadi. Everybody, yadi. Need somebody to love, somebody to kiss, somebody to come cool down your body when you feel the other day out and me get up on me bottom where me sit. Me look down the road, me sight a sexy little chick. She coming up the road, she looks so outlandish. Stand up stiff. Me like her figure, she got a nice tickle hip. 28, 32, and 36. Me just step down beside her without any resistance. Said I dare come here. Me love your cherry lip.
Mr. Bombastic, we want is a bombastic, romantic, fantastic lover. Shaggy, Mr. Lover. Now Mr. Lover, girl. Mr. Lover, now Mr. Lover. She call me Mr. Bombastic, tell me fantastic. Touch me on me back, she says I'm Mr. Romantic. Call me fantastic, touch me on me back, she says I'm Mr. Smooth. Just like a silk, soft and cuddly, hug me up like a quilt. I'm a lyrical lover, now take me thin filled with my sexual physique. You know me well, Bill, do me, oh my, well, can't you tell? I'm just like a turtle crawling out of my shell. Girl, you captivate my body, put me under a spell. With your couscous perfume, I love your sweets, love your sweets.
Wait, the sound and tell the people about the musical disc coming your way.
doing whatever I had to do to survive. I'm not saying what I did was alright. Trying to break out of the ghetto was a day-to-day fight. Being down so long, getting up to the cross my mind. But I knew there was a better way of life, and I was just trying to find. You don't know what you do till you put under pressure. Across 110th Street is a hell of a tester. Across 110th Street, pimps trying to catch a woman that's weak. Across 110th Street, pushers won't let the junkie go free. Across 110th Street, woman trying to catch a chick on the street. You get it. Across 110th Street, you can find it all in the
such a while. You see, he never smiled. Broken home, father gone, mama tired, so is all alone. Kinda sad, kinda mad, ghetto child, thinking he's been had. In the back of his mind he said, didn't have to be here, you didn't have to love for me, while I was just a nothing child. Why couldn't they just let me be, let me be, let me be?
Warning, to all those who have been yawning. Kids from foreign coming down in the early morning. This is the Dan Gaga with them car Ellie. Newly designed for the side of me. Now some of them wonder what is the boom shock attack. We have come down in this natural spot. So as the kids them come watching that, here it is. As the kids them pop it up.
The wickedest time me have a girl like home. Banja American beat with the pistol. Now put it down, yeah. Papa make it handing, yeah. Sometimes coffee, sometimes tea. You know say Banja American's a celebrity. We ram dance a town and in the country. All of the girls we say them love we, yeah. Look how the girls them nice and sweet. The gravity, gravity with the underneath. Who want it every day? Not to mention the weed.
Say reggae music run the world, we respect that. Cause every time we touch the mic, them screaming boom shaka attack. Crowd a massive gets the vibes, we're on after that. This is a lesson definition of the boom shaka, boom shaka, boom shaka, boom shaka, boom shaka.
Yeah, it's that street of the East. Touring the world, the other West Indies. Making cheese with songs like these. And overpass through all of the production. See, Arsenal One, Mr. Parajack, and Alicia Keys.
Well, you the one that said that you don't want me anymore. And how you need your space and give the keys back to your door. And how I cried and tried to make you stay with me.
pass, I do my thing. I tell them no be by force. Hey, tell them no be by force. Hey, tell them no be by force. As I try waka pass, I do my thing. I tell them no be by force. You never see landlord, and if you never know, you live for house. You see your family, they never drop and if you no go drop and if you no go rush for road, police stop you, they catch you, see police.
Some of them never know me. Some of them don't know me. Some of them keep for me. Every time the people jump in, some of them wanna whine for me. Some of them boogie down for me. Me love the way the ladies will whine for me. Everybody now, like a everybody go. I like the way you do it, Some of them never know me. Some of them don't know me. Some of them keep for me. Every time the people jump in, some of them wanna whine for me. Some of them boogie down for me. Me love the way the ladies will whine for me. Everybody now, like a everybody go. I like the way you do it, I did just say, all my ladies will whine on me. Like a see girls said, all my pum pum yeah you there. All the ladies who run on there. Move your body to the beat, yeah. Love me, need me. All my ladies, everybody they want me. The sexy body girls they need me. She said love me, she love me. She want me, yeah she want me. All my pum pum everybody love me. Sexy body girls everybody sanko. See the girl them hear me sanko. People them a feel me from the sanko. He don't care when I don't go. See the girl them a want to they hear me sanko. I bust the stereo. See the people them a feel me like so. Anywhere I wanna go, they want to go. See right now me count them my flow.
That's your baby, so are you. I know what's really going on, and so do you. I know they find passing trouble, but then they lie when they say Oluwa bona go bado. And if you ask what's in this up, then I go show you say the matter plenty. For the people with their life for themselves, say them be holy. You don't tell where they talk, but it be like say you know they hear me. Many things there for my mind as I'm singing this song. Mo sọ fún wọn kan gbàó, wọ́n fẹ́ gbàó. Money kan máa wọ̀rí tó báyà wọ́n máa gbàó. Money kan gbàó, wọ́n fẹ́ gbàó. Money kan máa wọ̀rí tó báyà wọ́n máa gbàó.
Toronto, where you at, Toronto? This one's for you, I know what Drake is from. This one's for you, Toronto. All my crooked ambassadors in Canada. We gotta get into it.
On your ways, front way, back way. You know that I don't play. Streets not safe, but I never run away, even when I'm away. OT, OT, there's never much love when we go OT. I pray to make it back in one piece. I pray, I pray. That's why I need a one dance. Got a Hennessy in my hand. One more time before I go. Higher powers taking a hold on me. I need a one dance. Got a Hennessy in my hand. One more time before I go. Higher powers taking a hold.
Si el ritmo te lleva a mover la cabeza, ya empezamos como es. Mi música no discrimina a nadie, así que vamos a romper.
Con lo mío todos se mueven, la fiesta la llevo en mis genes. Yo soy la reina de los nenes. Mi gente no se detiene, aquí nadie se quiere ir. Si el ritmo está en tu cabeza, ahora suéltate y mueve los pies. Me encanta cuando el bajo suena, empezamos a subir de nivel.
Y toda mi gente se mueve.
La fiesta la llevo en mis genes. Yo soy la reina de los nenes.
Mi música los tiene fuerte bailando y se van, y se van, y se van, y se van.
Baby girl, come and love you, know you wind that way to the baseline, girl. When you wind it slow. Check out your shape, no shame in that. My girl, gotta let you know. Anytime when you pass, I'm a city top class. My girl, my loving it go. When you tip on your toe and you take it low, girl, like cars in a volcano. Oh, girl, your body hot like lava. Oh, body hot like a lava. Oh, girl, your body hot like fire. Oh, cars in a volcano. Oh, girl, your body hot like lava. Oh, body hot like a lava. Oh, girl, your body hot like fire. Oh, cars in a volcano. Oh, I love the way how you're moving, girl. Love the way how we're grooving. Show me you're ready for the cruising. Good loving, we ain't losing. And when you do the thing, come and tell you right now. Split on the floor and show them how. Your technique is outstanding, and the way how you hot, girl, your cars in a volcano. Bedroom movie, me start now your show. Me are the director, you know that go. When you get the good thing from me, girl, watch out because your cars in a volcano.
I cannot tell who is my friend chosen. My heart is way too frozen to get broken. I seen man turn fool for the money one too many times. I seen some girls turn their back on their best friend from time. I heard you say things that you can't take back, girl, no time. I need you to go easy now and fix up one time. I cannot tell who is my friend. I need distance between me and them. Gonna have to teach me how to love you again.
Step aside.
God knows I'm
you don't know it's your article one full of faith. I not joke here, man. You think I lie with our skinhead? Mario, screech it out. Mario, sing the song. Hey.
Baby, I just don't get it. Do you enjoy being hurt? I know you smell the perfume, the makeup on the shirt.
Tell me now.
You don't believe his stories.
What?
You know that there are lies.
Liar.
Bad as you are, you stick around, and I just don't know why. If I was your man, baby, you never worry about what I do. I be coming home back to you every night, doing you right. You're the type of woman deserve good things. Fist full of diamonds, a head full of rain. Baby, you're a star. I just wanna show you you are. You should let me love you. Let me be the one to give you everything you want and need. A baby, good love and protection. Make me your selection. Show you the way love's supposed to be. Baby, you should let me love you.
Love you. Move him up. You don't know me at the man now. Move him and I swear I want. Step aside. Every day go a walk till evening. When you come home you don't get no greetings. How you doing? I was work, how you feeling? Cheating, misleading, too damn deceiving. Every day him a boss like Big Dan. And I tell him friend them I know you want. Now you see the relationship pop down. Cause the next man I take off and get friend tag.
Mommy Matola lives on the run. Mommy Matola lives on. Mommy Matola lives on the road. He lost his lady 2 months ago. Maybe he'll find her. Maybe he won't, or one never knows. Of his big red Cadillac on my knee, blowing his mind on cheap grass and wine. Don't rain it crazy, baby. Hey, guess you could say, hey, hey, the man has learned his lesson. No, hey, now he's alone. He's got no woman and no home. For misery, oh oh, cherchez la femme.
Mama ku, mama sa, makumakusa, mama ku, mama sa, makumakusa, mama ku, mama sa, makumakusa, mama ku, mama sa, mamakusa. Sumanye. Atele. Mosoma, mosoma. Kuma, 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 kuma. Tanga tigo, ombu satanga, ne usama kosa. Alumuna, sisi au, yasama kosa.
Yo.
she wanted was one wine from me. All she said she needed was a little bit of my time. She never expected to get so addicted to my wine. She said, are you gonna hurt me? Am I a statistic, a victim of your circumstances? Or will I just get evicted from this loving safety? Please don't disappoint me. Not this time. Give me one more.
Para bailar la bamba, para bailar la bamba, se necesita una poca de gracia, una poca de gracia pa' mi party, ahí arriba, ahí arriba. Uno más, uno más, uno más, para bailar la bamba, uno más, para bailar la bamba, se necesita una poca de gracia, una poca de gracia pa' mi party, ahí arriba, ahí arriba, ahí arriba, ahí arriba, por ti seré, por ti seré, por ti seré. Baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba.
Baila bamba hasta que quede samba. Donde manda capitán, marinero no manda. Esto es bamba, mujeres bailen en falda. Lo bailan en el Caribe, también en Holanda. Encima, si le encuentras fina, ay bamba. Si te gusta como ella camina, ay bamba. En la que se va, ten cuidado como le da ella candela. Esa nena tiene bamba. Encima, si le encuentras fina, ay bamba. Si te gusta como ella camina, ay bamba. En la que se va, ten cuidado como le da ella candela. Esa nena tiene bamba.
Yo no soy marinero, yo no soy marinero, soy capitán, soy capitán, soy capitán. Baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba.
Déjate llevar con el flow mortal de la bamba. Puerto Rico ahora se expande entrando con buena chamba. El malcriado se altera buscando la que se lamba. Toma, preña su biloma, que mi suerte nunca cambia. A mí me gusta verlas mover, hacerlas sentir mujer, para que bailen bamba. A mí me gusta soltar su piel, que me digan a quién para yo darle bamba. Me gusta cómo te castigo, yo no me fatigo, quiero estar contigo. Si me dices cuándo, rápido me tiro, te hago pan de trigo, pa' que bailen la bamba conmigo. Si me dices sigue, yo sigo.
Para bailar la bamba, uno más, para bailar la bamba, se necesita una poca de gracia, una poca de gracia pa' mi party, ahí arriba, ahí arriba, ahí arriba, ahí arriba, por ti seré, por ti seré, por ti seré. Baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba, baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba, uno más, baila bamba. Haïtien parle créole, non parle espagnol, non parle toute langue, non allez. Oh non, allez. Gardez Maria, Maria, Maria. Gardez la danse combat. L'histoire Saint-Domingue, mais l'île me combat.
Ave María, 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 líbrame de tu mal. Vela que nada nos pase, para que no nos caiga el mal. Ave María, 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 líbrame de tu mal. Vela que nada nos pase, para que no nos caiga el mal.
Yo, Roca,
Gaby,
Wyclef,
bailando bamba,
los refugees. Lague la bamba, lague la bamba, mixe la comba, mixe la comba, lague la bamba, lague la bamba, gardez video.
goza la bamba, baila de esto, goza lo nena.